Oh, I am nervous for this one because I
like you start rubbing your
Y-
hands together with
yeah,
me.
I'm just mirroring you. Yeah, the all of the neurospicy behaviors are gonna come out of
Yeah.
this one, because this is the ultimate like tale of filmmaker obsession.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's. Did you watch through the credits of this? I don't know why I'm just diving right in. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to Splice Splatter, the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where classic horror.
It's modern gore. Now we can jump into
Now
it.
we can jump in. Are we still introducing ourselves at the start of
I don't
episodes?
think so.
I
Y'all
think we dropped
know.
that. You all know better than we do.
But if
now
not,
I'm questioning
if you're new,
myself.
I'm Al.
I'm Siena.
Recognize our voices.
Yeah. Ooh, spooky, scary.
Who's who? You don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching the episode, we look more different than we usually do.
Yeah.
If you're on the YouTubes, because we are covering today The Love Witch from 2016.
And Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1988. I said 81 last week. It's because your film was 81.
Yep, that would
but
do it.
yeah, 88. So yeah, we're very much like on.
We dressed on
theme.
brand. I think this is a good one to do a fit check for.
Yeah, fit check for sure.
Yeah,
if you're
'cause-
watching, you see it.
Yeah, and if not, go watch it.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at describing our outfits, but I feel like this is one
I'm
too.
wearing a spider web dress.
it's
and
amazing.
red flame platform heels. So I feel like that sums up
That
Elvira.
pretty much sums up the
yeah,
vibe. And
yeah.
I am dressed like a pastel cake out of the tea room in this movie. Is what I'm gonna go with.
So
So
excited to talk about these.
this is our Valentine's episode.
Yeah, happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day.
Or not if you hate love.
Yeah, and I feel like these are both movies that kind of
These could be your date.
yes,
You don't need a date.
absolutely.
These are your dates.
These are
They're your dates.
yeah, they're
I'll be your
very
date.
very good
Love a date.
Galentine's movies. Love a date. Love to have one
Yeah, yeah.
sometime.
We also call this like Valentine's Gay episode
Yeah,
too. You did.
yes.
Because I feel like
Because it is.
yeah, they're very just like I don't know,
It's-
hot.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I forget what question I'd asked you at the start of this. Did you watch through the credits? That's where it was.
Yes, I
Yes.
did.
So you saw how many times director Anna Biller's name came up in
Oh my
those
god.
credits?
Yeah, and you kind of had that was one of the facts like going into it. You kind of like teased to me too, so I was on the lookout, and it was something that I was like really excited to see, and knew this was going to be such a Siena thing to talk about as a writer, a producer, a director. Like you're doing all the things too, so it's I'm excited.
And she did even more things.
Oh, I
And
bet.
it
feels that way in the best way possible.
yeah, and because of that, spoiler alert, when I went into researching this episode, I thought that I was going to have a really hard time because the sources that we usually go to, or at least the sources that I usually go to start my research, which like I know you and I both love the IMDb trivia page.
It's a great place to start because you find those nuggets and then you expand on them if you can.
Yeah, and what I'll usually do is like I'll find nuggets that are really interesting there and then I'll go fact check them elsewhere. And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
articles that I use to fact check them are usually where I can find good interviews, like the people working on the film actually talking about the film themselves. The IMDb trivia page for this film had, I think, 4 total entries.
Oh, that terrifies
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, and
it's such a great place. It's an outline.
yeah, I was looking around and I was like, all of the places that I usually go to just like dip my toe in had almost nothing. And I was kind of freaking out because I know
Yeah.
that this is a film that was meticulously planned and
Oh,
it's from
yeah.
2016. And so one would hope that there's
Mhm.
stuff about it, but it's, very low budget.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a ton of behind the scenes material because, they're shooting on film.
I
They're
was
not
gonna
going to waste any film on that. So it was an adventure, and then I found a specific source that just like opened up this Pandora's box.
Ooh,
I
thank God.
found the director of photography posting on cinematography.com
Uh,
on the forums
uh,
over the course of months of shooting and
So it's like a
post-production,
live blog.
like basically live blogging
Oh my
his
God, I'm so
experience of making the
jealous.
film and going through post with Anna Biller,
Oh my God.
with like screenshots accompanying.
Bless
Like,
whoever the cinematographer was.
he's amazing.
Damn.
So that was, I told you I had like a surprise. I
Yeah.
also found Anna Biller's 2011 blog while she was working on this. Again, this film's from 2016. She was working on this for a long time.
Yeah.
And in 2011, she's already posting like props and stuff that
Oh
she's
my
collecting for the
God.
film. So
What
there
a
ended up,
juicy.
yeah, it ended up being like there wasn't the secondary sources that I'd usually go to, because
You had
the
firsthand.
primary sources were so
Oh, I'm
rich.
so
So it
jealous.
was quite a time.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Mine was the opposite
Oh
experience.
no.
There is a making of this movie. I can't find it online.
No.
So
No.
you could probably watch that and hear way better information than I'm about to give, but good luck finding it. I don't know if I have to buy the DVD or what, but there is a like making of, and it like called Too Macabre or something like that. The making of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Oh, what a good name.
So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a tidbit to start with?
Yes, I kind of in the same way.
Love.
I kind of just it's not related to anything, but I thought it was cool because we kind of talked last week and just together how we couldn't think of we knew we wanted to do Love Witch. We knew we were playing it actually at the Jean Cocteau Cinema in
Yes,
Santa
thank you for
Fe,
the reminder.
February 27th only. So
That
there's one
Thursday.
screening, so you can see it on the big screen. Boy, do I want to see it on the big screen now.
It's one that I feel like deserves it. Apparently, the Jean Cocteau played it when it was first released too, which is really cool.
Before I even knew that it existed.
I know.
Either of the things.
Yeah.
But we were like having a hard time pairing because we're like, this one's so aesthetic. Finally, I was like, oh my God, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, duh.
Perfect choice.
I didn't realize it was obviously it was released in theaters, but when it was first issued on VHS and beta in the US by New World Video, it was released in February of 1989, and the video store promotional poster declared, "What a pair, Elvira and Valentine's Day." So it was released as a little Valentine's
That's so
on VHS. So
I love that.
Who knew? Not I. So I thought that was funny.
It has that kind of a feeling to it, which
does.
I love, especially because it's not really like any kind of romance subplots are really not important to the movie.
Oh yeah.
Yours. Like they're just kind of like
yeah, they're just there. She's the star.
There. Yeah, she's the star.
So that's my tidbit. I thought it was cool. So happy Valentine's Day.
I love that.
That's she can be your date.
I have a tidbit for kind of the connection between our movies.
Ooh.
I found a quote from Anna Biller, again, our director / everything.
Yeah.
Talking about how your film was a reference for my film.
No way.
Yeah. So here's the quote. She
that makes
says,
me happy.
Well, and she's talking specifically about, I found an article where she was interviewed by, I think, like a fashion magazine about the different costumes, because, spoiler alert, she also made all the costumes herself. All the ones that weren't vintage sourced, which she adjusted for the actors herself.
Yeah.
She made herself.
Oh my God,
and we're going to talk about that. And so she did this kind of like breakdown of some of her favorite looks from the film and where the inspo came from. And so she's talking here about, and I'll put a picture if we clip this out, but ding. She's talking here about the black mini dress that Samantha Robinson wears.
So good.
And she says, I wanted to make a very classic black witchy dress that looks like Elvira, or all of those stereotypes we have of what a witch looks like. A long black dress with long bell sleeves. I used an early 70s simplicity pattern for that dress. It was fashionable in the 70s to wear these long dresses all the way to the floor, long sleeves, and a lot of them wouldn't normally be made of black. They'd be made of a printed fabric or something more romantic. Of course, you can use anything. So just,
no way.
Yeah, the fact that that was specifically a reference.
Out.
What
a good pair. Look at us.
Yeah, I would say we didn't even know.
Yeah, these were really fun to watch together. They're so different.
They're so different, but so in conversation. Yeah, especially because I don't want to make assumptions about your film, but it feels like Cassandra Peterson had a big creative impact on the making of it.
Oh yes,
yes.
Feels
like she's a lot more than just a performer.
Yes,
not that that's
absolutely.
not a huge creative impact in itself, but so. Shall we dive in?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm so excited.
Love Witch.
Yeah.
So this film only has one tagline, but it is good.
Ooh.
She loved men. ... to death.
Ah! I mean, you
It's
can't get better than
perfect.
that. That's
It's
exactly what it
perfect.
is.
Yeah. So this stars.
All you need to know.
It's that just it's a great way to sell a
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
Encapsulates the entire experience. Um, so this stars Samantha Robinson, which just such a 60s sounding name in itself, as Elaine Parks. Her parents are Panamanian and English, which I
Mm.
want to cite because I think this kind of places her firmly in the camp of like 2010's horror queens that people don't realize are Hispanic, which,
Yeah.
you know, Anya Taylor-Joy, Mia Goth.
Yeah.
It's like a thing that we saw happening at this time period. And this is also something that interested me because as I went into research about Anna Biller, she herself is a mixed actress, and so
Mm.
she performed in her own earlier films and talked about the frustration of like kind of being typecast based on
Ah.
race. And so it was like, this is something that I never would have thought was in any way going on in this film until I started doing more of a
Yeah.
deep dive into it. So just shouting that out. You may also have seen Samantha Robinson as Abigail Folger in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Tarantino
Oh,
movie.
I haven't watched it yet, but I know of it.
So you all might have seen
Yeah.
her as Abigail Folger in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We also have Jeffrey Vincent Parise as Wayne Peters. What a performance.
Oh my God.
He's perfect for the role.
So he looks like that guy.
He really
personifies.
feels like he's out of another time. I mean,
Uh-huh.
they both do.
I was gonna say, no one in this, I love seeing this because it was done in 2016. I always say, like, people have like an iPhone face or not an iPhone face. Like,
I
they
was
look like
thinking
they've
about
never
you saying
seen
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
It was
is
so refreshing to see, even
and-
with the modern cars, which
yes,
threw me.
it's fascinating. Well, and there's like all of these intentional anachronisms where like one of the characters pulls out a cell phone at one point.
It's wild.
There's a computer on in the police station.
Yeah.
Like there's all sorts of stuff that the more you dive into it, the more it's like it happens no time, no place. Almost.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It lives in this like liminal space.
Yeah, which is I think one of the things that I'm most interested in about the film. But anyway, so Jeffrey was, I don't know how this is pronounced. Y'all are gonna hate me for this. Asmodeus in Supernatural.
Asmodeus sounds right.
ASMOD.
Yeah.
Asmodeus,
We
great.
got a fact check on that.
Fantastic. He was Roger in High Desert. He was also in Days of Our Lives, General Hospital. He even was in an episode of Mad Men, which feels like an appropriate thing to shout out for this. Not because I actually read an interview of Anna Biller talking about how she never watched Mad Men, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think it will very much, to people who like Mad Men, feel like it lives in a similar space. We have Laura Waddell as Trish. She does a lot of tragic Trish. Oh, so true. Tragic Trish. Laura does a lot of video game voice work, including World of Warcraft, Battle for Azeroth, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Batman Arkham Origins.
Ooh,
so that's
fun,
probably,
I have a voice
love
actor
a voice
in mind,
actor.
too.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask who it is, or is that a spoiler?
Kind of a spoiler.
Okay.
I kind of want to talk. I'm gonna take a pause on her. So,
Love that. And we have Clive Ashbourne as Professor King. He was also Guy Fawkes in V for Vendetta. I also don't know how to pronounce this. It's been too long since I've seen Pirates of the Caribbean. Kalenico?
I don't know, actually. We've just been watching those, too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of the creatures in that.
Ooh, cool.
And he's Nigel in the miniseries I Love Dick, which I just want to shout out because it's really good and I feel like not enough people watched it when
Is that the
came
one
out.
with
Catherine
Hahn?
Yes.
I started that. I got like 5 episodes in because there was a actress in it that I had a crush on. So that's why I watched.
Tracks for you. Yep. Love that.
From a League of Their Own. It's that. Actress.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Yeah, I went down a wormhole watching all their work. That's how I do.
That tracks. That tracks.
That's how I fangirl.
Also, of course, our director, Anna Biller, director/everything. Before this, she had directed one indie feature called Viva in 2007, which she stars in as well. I'm now extremely curious about it because it has very much the same kind of extreme period authenticity to elements of the 60s and 70s,
Ooh.
inspired a lot by Hammer horror in particular.
Hammer horror?
Hammer horror, the British company
Oh,
that's
right, right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
I
I
did
know
a
every
blurb on them
time
one of the episodes. I literally talked about them.
but it's like one of those combinations of words that like
I hate it.
it's
It
yeah,
doesn't
it
stick.
doesn't sound right
It
coming
should
yeah.
stick because every time, I think I've asked every time, and I've myself researched it for like 3 episodes
And
ago.
it's gonna happen in the future,
Mhm.
and I love it. So Viva, she stars as this like repressed 60s housewife who's kind of joining the sexual revolution. Looks amazing.
Truly.
She also directed several shorts, all kind of in this very similar Technicolor inspired visual flavor, which I just wanted to read some of the titles of because I feel
Ooh,
like it
yes,
very
please.
much like gives you a sense of what she's interested in.
Sure.
So before this, she did A Visit from the Incubus,
Ooh.
The Hypnotist, Fairy Ballet, and her first project, Three Examples of Myself as Queen, which
Oh
is
my god.
just like
This sounds like just segments. These could have been
yeah,
like title cards for segments of
in
this
this
film.
movie. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
she's clearly somebody who is interested, even without watching these, who can tell she's interested in
Yeah.
these similar threads.
Very cool. Love those titles.
So yeah, again, just had to shout that out for the title. She obviously wrote, directed, produced, edited this film. She's also the costume designer, as I mentioned, made the costumes by hand,
Damn.
many of them. She's the production designer.
Ugh.
She's the composer for
Ah.
everything that's not Ennio Morricone scores. So like all of the
Oh.
harp stuff she composed, the like original medieval stuff she composed. Yeah,
No.
she
Oh my
this woman
gosh. Too
did
much talent. No one talks about
everything.
it.
It's
Holy shit.
mind-boggling, and it makes sense why it took her 7 years.
Oh damn.
She also was one of the set decorators. She
Mhm.
was the set designer. She was the art director too. I wrote like it's giving Robert Rodriguez, it's giving John
Yeah,
Carpenter.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's very um this really has her
I
fingerprints
was
on
gonna say she just had a
everything.
vision. She's
Yeah.
like, I just know what I want, and if I give this to
Yeah.
anyone else, it's just you. Because how do you get what's in your brain out? And it's like
Mhm.
sometimes you just can't verbalize it. It's just you gotta just do it yourself.
Well, and she says, particularly with the costumes, she was originally supposed to have a costume designer.
Mhm.
And she was like, basically, I wasn't experienced enough to know how much work what I was talking about was. This costume designer, like, saw what I wanted and basically, like, laughed me out of the room. Was like, you want me to make, like, what, 50 medieval costumes with, like, cod pieces and
Yeah.
hats and, like, all of this stuff. And you're expecting me to just, like, whip this up in a couple weeks? Like, girl, get out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And she said basically a lot of this being just her was a combination of budget and
For sure.
just like the fact that she like didn't realize how time intensive everything would
Yeah.
be, and so she was just like, well, I'm gonna do it myself. Which just fascinating.
Yeah.
And cinematographer M. David Mullen, who, guess what? If his name sounds familiar, we've talked about him once before on this podcast. He also shot Jennifer's body. Isn't that
No.
wild?
That's a great one to
Two
connect to.
completely
Holy
visually
shit.
different films,
Oh,
but
wildly
like
so.
so
When was Jennifer's body?
2009.
Gosh, dang,
So
these weren't even
this
that far apart from each other.
yeah.
7 years.
So he was
Holy
shooting
shit.
this. Yeah, his posts on the forum that I found are from 2015. So he's shooting this 6 years after Jennifer's body came
Wow.
out. Um,
Damn.
he also shot a lot of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and
Oh,
I
okay,
also
that makes
just wanted to
sense.
shout out, I've got like a weird like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon from
Ooh,
him,
oh.
because he also shot Twin Falls, Idaho, which was a movie co-written and starring Mark Polish, who's one of my actors on Radon's
Oh
Daughters.
shit.
So weird
Yeah, it's like
little
2 degrees. Holy
yeah,
shit.
weird little tie there. And we're gonna talk so much about David Mullen
Okay, yeah.
because
That's
he's
like the main question. I was like, I just can't wait for Siena to rattle
it's
off all the facts
wild.
about
It's
because
wild.
this film was so I just wanted to screenshot everything in my brain forever.
There were 8 pages of posts from him, Al.
Oh
8
shit.
pages. I had to
And
like
where can at cinematography.com?
yeah, I linked to it in my notes. We can even like I feel like it's so cool that I might even like
We gotta
post
post
it on my
stuff.
own story and
Yeah.
like we can repost it or something. But like it is so fascinating to get to
Yeah.
read through. I've never had an experience
Oh
like this in
yeah.
researching a film. And it just it was so hard to boil down what of that to talk about on here because
Sure.
you really could just talk about the nitty-gritty of the cinematography and lighting,
Yeah.
particularly the lighting for this film,
Ugh.
for like 5
Oh,
hours
yeah, for sure. I
just
could
based
listen
on
to this
that.
for
Yeah,
hours.
and so trying to figure out, okay, what are kind of the most representative anecdotes that he shares
Mhm.
from set? I hope I did a decent job, but like if you're into it, go do a deep dive and read all 8
Mhm.
pages. It's
Oh, cool.
fascinating. Um so we're gonna get to that in a second. I want to kind of go in my usual order and talk about the like
Yeah.
writing and conception of this first. So where the fuck does this come
I was
from?
gonna say, yeah, wild
How does
story.
this happen?
Wild story.
Yeah.
Like, a little bonkers, a little nonsensical,
Yep.
but in a way that, like, the
You're
visuals of it kind of assist that, so you're like, "No, you
you're
buy
along
into
for the
it."
ride. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The
It's
medieval scene was one of my 60s, 70s medieval revival is one of my fashion inspirations in life right now.
I didn't even think about how much this would be up your alley
This
just in
was
terms of that.
beyond up my alley, and, like,
Oh, I'm
that
so
scene really
glad.
just, like,
Yeah.
just sealed it for me, so once we got I mean, and that's, like, further in the film, but I was just like, "What the fuck
Yeah.
is going on?" But you're there for it.
100%. It's and she actually the very end of the film, that kind of dream sequence, she
Mhm.
went back and reshot
Oh.
too. So, which I've seen one of the things about Anna Biller, she gives very conflicting statements on a lot of different things.
Hmm.
So, I've seen her both say that it was reshot for weather, and
Mhm.
I've seen her say that it was reshot to create more of a tragic air in that scene.
Mm.
And I've seen her say that it was reshot because, or that those days were added onto the schedule later because the costumes weren't ready.
Okay.
So any of those three, or all three of them, could be true. What
Yeah.
David Mullen said was that it was weather.
Ah.
Um,
Ah.
so that's do with that
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
will.
yeah.
Um, so all of which is just to say, even as we get into talking about kind of her approach to writing this story and where all of this
Yeah.
wild medieval revival imagery comes from, know that any Anna Biller quote I give you, you could probably find an
Find
Anna
it.
Biller quote saying something
Stop.
almost the
Okay.
exact
Good to
opposite
note.
on just about everything except for the technical specifics of what
Wow.
she's doing. So you
She
can
she went through it for those 7
she
years.
really did. So you can really trust the like nitty-gritty details of
Mhm.
a lot of what she shares. Once she gets into kind of the meaning and history of the project, she says some really interestingly contradictory things.
Hmm.
But so,
Weird.
um at the time the script is written, she is reading a lot of relationship self-help books. And she ends up actually she's currently in a relationship with a guy who writes relationship self-help books. So
Wild. Okay.
there's a whole art imitates life. It's very
For
hard to
sure.
tell what she's um parodying and what
Yeah.
is honest.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself has a really fascinating quality. But so she keeps seeing this idea in self-help books repeated that the best way to keep a man is to love him less than he loves you. And she starts thinking about the parallels between that idea and kind of classic Hollywood female characters
Mm.
who love someone to death.
Yeah.
And the inspiration for Elaine is kind of born of these two, I think, kind of very oppositional
Mhm. Oh,
concepts,
yeah.
which there you go. There's this like foundational schism, I think, at the center of this
Ooh.
movie that's really interesting.
Foundational schism. Band
Foundational
name.
schism band name, yes! Oh, hell yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. So here's a quote from the blog that I mentioned from 2011.
Mhm.
Again, 4 years before shooting this movie. She says, quote, "Love, in much of literature, is almost presented as a woman's form of violence, with female characters doing anything, no matter how horrible, for love.
Hmm.
This is perhaps because love has almost always been seen as a woman's domain, while sex has been seen as a man's domain. My thesis in the film is that men fear love because they fear losing control of themselves and being eaten alive, especially by a female that they deeply desire, but they also fear love itself as a thing that causes women to grasp onto them for life with a terrifying clutch, which feels very possession
Yeah,
also.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and to develop even more terrifying passions, as the witch Medea did when she killed her own children after being spurned in love by Jason. Men fear the witch because she is never a passive object of desire. She hunts for what she wants and takes it. It's also specifically intended as a feminist movie. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that she talks a lot about. And so from 2021, a full 10 years after that previous quote,
Mm-hmm.
she says, all of my work, starting from those 16 mil films, are feminist, and they're very consciously and very deliberately constructed to try and make people understand what it is like to live as a woman of the world, though you have to constantly negotiate.
Mm.
Basically, The Love Witch is about a woman who's been driven crazy by the patriarchy. If you're looking at it through a feminist lens, then every single moment of that film funnels into the idea that the struggle this character has is to maintain a central personhood in the midst of only ever being looked at as an object, and
Mm.
how she negotiates that. Um, she also obviously is thinking a whole lot and very openly thinking about and writing about at the time she's working on this, the Laura Mulvey essay on the male gaze.
Oh.
So a lot of this film is kind of made directly in response
Oh,
to
wow.
Laura Mulvey. And she says that kind of her specific take on this idea, and little spoiler alert for later in the podcast, this is part of why Anna Biller is a very controversial figure.
Ooh.
She her take on kind of a feminist response to the idea of the male gaze
Yeah.
is that she wants to make movies for the visual pleasure of women. And so she says she's, quote, obsessively featuring lace doilies, tea sets, handbags, false eyelashes, ashtrays, curtains, pillows,
Ashtrays.
domestic things, creating a world of objects that feel female.
Hmm.
Maybe it excites me to put a beautiful woman on screen and have her wear beautiful makeup and make her look fantastic. You know, great stockings, great lingerie, great shoes, great handbag. And she points out that that's very much something that caters to female viewers.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. Her films have been compared by particularly, spoiler alert, a lot of male critics to sexploitation movies. Yeah, wild, right?
Whoa. Of
And she's
course.
like very offended by that,
Yeah.
which, like, I love sexploitation
Well,
movies,
same, but like
but
I
this
think
is
they're
not
saying it
doing
because again,
that.
yeah.
And so her whole point is like all of this like high femme shit that I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
is for the sake of women. That's not
Yeah.
for the sake of men. And the fact that men are able to watch this film and just be like, oh, hot is,
Are we surprised?
yeah, that's saying something about them, not about the film.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so let's see. Da, da, da. I also found this interview from after the film's release that I wanted to bring in a quote from. And again, I think all of these are presenting kind of different facets of the concepts that she's exploring in
Mm-hmm.
this movie. I think part of what is difficult about this film is that um it's from the perspective of an unreliable narrator, right? And
Oh my
so
gosh, yeah. You really have
gets
no idea what's
you
actually
have
happening.
no idea what's actually happening. We know from the very first shot that Elaine is saying that her husband left her, but she obviously killed him.
Yeah.
And so like it we know from the beginning that we can't really trust her.
For sure.
And also we're being asked to empathize with her even as we see her go off the rails.
Yeah.
Um
It was really I wasn't expecting that aspect of this at
mhm.
all.
So she says, quote, there's a dissociation from your own humanity and from your own soul and spirit that, if you do it for too long, does create a kind of madness. Some of the people who've been really responding to my film strongly are sex workers because they're like, this is my life. In a way, maybe it is. It's about things that are real, but I've coded them because I'm trying to make something pleasurable, which again, that's a Laura Mulvey word.
Mm-hmm.
Not something ugly in the way that it really is. It's actually much more terrifying than how I painted it. I'm trying to give people a pleasurable cinematic experience, but I'm talking about things that are extremely dark.
Hmm.
And I think that to me very much comes across in the way the film is presented.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like candy coated on the surface and so rotten on the
Yeah,
inside.
yeah.
And that to me is part of why I love it.
Oh, it's great. I thought it was going to be more gory, but yeah, like
there's very little.
the horrors of
actually.
it really was rotten.
Yeah.
It was a great way to. It's
Yeah, like I keep thinking about that shot of the plate of food back at the house.
That's what I was gonna say. That's kind of what, like, I feel like embodied what you just said too.
Yeah,
As we get to this state where like everything's so beautiful, and then you come and see all these things that have just been sitting, and like the condom on the table, and like these flies and the maggots and stuff. It's just like,
and that very much reminds me of Pearl, actually. And I think
yes,
Pearl
that's what
very
I
much
thought
feels like it's inspired in some ways by the Love Witch.
absolutely. It's got to be a little bit.
Right? Especially, 2016. I'm sure Mia Goth was watching this.
Oh,
Like,
she
she must have been.
absolutely. She had to have.
She likes horror movies. Like,
She likes weird shit.
she likes the weird shit. Come on. Okay. Now we get to production. And this is the
Yeah.
part that's most fun to talk about. Obviously, you can tell looking at this wasn't just shot on 16 mil. This was shot on 35.
Okay, that's what I
And we
thought.
almost never see shit shot on 35 anymore, because you usually either get extremely low budget film projects shooting on Super 8 or Super 16, or you get extremely, extremely high budget
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino movies
Yep.
shooting on 70 mil. And this specific look is what so many of the films that we all grew up loving were shot on. And so as Anna Biller and David Mullen were preparing for this, they watched, and I'm sure you can imagine, so many period films from
Oh, yeah.
the like 40s through 70s. They really didn't want to go past 1970 or so
Yeah, that makes
for their
sense.
references. But particularly looking into details of things like the shape of the film grain and the texture of the
Ooh.
film grain. And so obviously they were looking a lot at Hitchcock films, but they've both gone on the record being like, people keep comparing this to Vertigo. It's not inspired by Vertigo. It's Marnie and the Birds. Those are the ones that we wanted the look of. And
man.
they do even like a film grain side-by-side comparison
Really?
of here's what we were trying to emulate.
Wow, that's fun.
It's also not just shot on 35, it's cut on actual film stock, which is, I think,
Very cool.
it's an extremely rare and dying art form to cut and print from the original cut negative.
Yeah.
Because most of the people who were trained in that have retired, who were trained in that to a professional level. Apparently, by the time Anna Biller was making and cutting this, most of the film cement, which is like the sticky stuff used to attach frames together in LA, had expired.
Oh,
and
shit.
so like there are just all of these practical obstacles to making something in this style. And I think watching it back, it feels to me very much paced like a movie cut on film.
I was gonna say, that's how I learned when I went to film school. That's how I learned.
That's so cool.
We were we
Ugh.
shot on a little Bolex, and we
Ugh.
had a hand splice. We had a hand splice stuff, and I remember sitting there and like making sure, because the cuts felt like that at times. Where like they. Like, in a way, they were like, the whole film's campy. What am I talking about? They were very campy cuts.
100%.
But it felt like, because it was done that way.
It's slower. It's
Yeah.
slower paced. And I very much felt that returning to the film this time. But it makes sense, because when you're cutting the original film negative, that's...
Did you ever sit there and have to do,
I
like, you have to
never got
peek through
the
the
chance to.
thing, and you'd have to, like, pull it through
I
and
want
stuff?
to so badly.
It is.
It sounds so
much
satisfying.
Fun. It is so much fun.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Everyone should try. If you could even hunt anything like that down.
Yeah.
We were required that we couldn't do digital my year.
That's so cool. Oh my God. I'm
So
so jealous.
I appreciate how much work goes into that. We would make like 3-minute movies, and that took hours of just, and we had people that would like hand color theirs too sometimes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's really cool.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so.
Oh my God.
Shout out Al Lore.
Alvira. Elvira.
That's what I said last night.
Oh my God. It's right there.
I know,
had to.
it's there.
I was going to save it for your section.
That's how I should have introduced myself.
Yeah, I'm Elvira. Oh.
Let's do it over again. Let's start over.
Yeah. Or cut this.
You can start over. See,
Perfect.
Right? We're We're not 30 minutes
Let it
in.
go the way of coffee foot. So let's see. Okay, yeah. Let's get into a little bit of the David Mullen
Yes,
factoids that I
yeah.
found. So first of all, one of the like concepts that I wanted to lay out on the table is that this movie is shot with hard lighting. What
Mm.
is hard lighting? It's this kind of old-fashioned approach to lighting that's based around these old film stocks where, you know, you need to light people more,
Yeah.
for one thing. And it's where you're getting those harsh shadows instead of the soft beauty light that we're so used to
Yeah.
seeing now, where everything kind of gets flattened out a little
Oh,
bit.
for sure.
I remember there was one shot where you see just like the shape of Samantha Robinson's nose projected on her own cheek.
I was looking at the shadows like that too.
It's just
Yeah.
stunning.
Yeah, there's a scene too when she first gets into when Trish is first walking her in the room, she like goes down to her suitcase and stands up, and the harsh shadow of her on the wall. I'm just like, oh,
It's
that lighting.
so
Oh, that lighting.
satisfying. Yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I'm trying to remember the exact word for it. Anna Biller describes modern movie lighting as like this invisible style of filmmaking.
Oh, for sure.
And she's really just like, I want to do the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, it's like theater. It's just like all out
It's
there.
like
It's
theater.
raw.
Yeah, which is so suited to, you know, her thesis in the film, which
Yeah.
is like all about this like sense of performance. It also is another thing that causes a lot of problems on set because, you
Oh,
know,
God.
people's makeup is melting, stuff like that from the
Oh,
lights.
I was
'cause
gonna say
it's
we have
so hot.
minimal light and the
Yeah,
shit gets me
these are
warm. So I can't even. I
LEDs.
know. Shut up, Sienna. I
These are
know.
LEDs and it gets warm.
I know. I can't even imagine.
One of the
Oh,
things that
God.
the cinematographer pointed out that I was just like, oh my God, is there's a couple of scenes where you see practicals, like real lights that are
Yeah.
on in the scene, where you see like a table lamp with the bulb on. And he said all of those were 150-watt bulbs and they barely register as on.
Oh, shit.
So that tells you how
Damn.
much light they had to use. And they were using largely period heads. So
Yeah.
it's all the kind of bulbs that were extremely hot.
God damn, I can't even imagine.
This was especially, he said, hard for some of those extreme close-ups he was doing, where
Yeah.
you would see the actors starting to like visibly squint on
Oh,
camera.
shit, really?
Yeah, things
I
that
was gonna
like
say everyone did a really good job because even like the makeup looked
it looks
nothing.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As matte as can be.
Which I can only imagine how many times they had to keep going in and
Powder
reapplying.
puffs. Yeah, powder puffs in the pockets of
truly.
everybody.
Oh my God. They also, one of the things that Mullen is kind of like lamenting over the course of this thread that he just keeps coming back to is like, he has a list of like 10 different film stocks that have all been discontinued that he wants to use that he can't. He
Bummer.
has so many different choices of like, this is what it really should have been, but he can't find
Yeah, and he just can't let it go,
exactly what he
too.
wants. And
Oh,
so
buddy.
one of the things that he does to get kind of the exact right look to the color in particular, and because Technicolor doesn't exist anymore,
Right.
and she's going for a Technicolor look, and it reads very much like that. One of the things they did, and I just like,
Oh, I can't wait.
like,
See, this
gives
is the
me
stuff I wanted
shivers.
to. I'm like dying to hear.
They shoot it underexposed by one stop so that then when they're in the post-production process, they can bump it up and have more room to play with the colors, which like is a very atypical approach to working on 35 mil, but makes so much sense for what they're trying to achieve there to get that like faux Technicolor look, essentially.
Simple solution. Way simpler than I thought it was gonna be.
And he also, one of the things Mullen talks about is that he's kind of in this constant fight between the stock and the look that they're going for requiring so much lighting and obviously wanting to get this really harsh light and also needing to use so many layers of diffusion of like, you know, what we use, like a pro mist filter, which is like a almost stocking like material. He used some more kind of like market accessible things like that, but he also went out to fabric stores, went looking through all of the different fabrics, bought his own, created his own different kinds of diffusion textures for this, and for a lot of different shots was using multiple layers too. So
What show?
incredibly complicated.
Yeah, I can't even imagine being on set. Damn.
And so it's like this sort of constant dance back and forth between the light and the things he's using
Yeah.
to cut it. They also, almost all of, probably it's safe to say all, the visual effects in this film are in camera. So like the drug trip sequence, it's a kaleidoscope lens.
I was wondering what was used for that. It looks.
It looks real.
Yeah.
It looks real. Which like it's
I was
just
dying for that scene to pop up because I saw like when I looked it up for the first time to do
that's
poster
one of
stuff.
yeah.
I saw it and I was like, when are we gonna get
It's
to this?
so sick. That's one of my favorite like trip sequences in film history. Because it just feels like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they use kaleidoscope lens. They use kind of to create some of the like very hard edges on light. They just use like black tape on the barn doors covering the light.
Yeah.
Literally just shaping it like that. They, for the shot where Samantha Robinson is like lying in a pool, it's like an extreme close up of her face. She's lying in like a pool of red light, and there's like an almond shaped like slit over her face that's like not red. So it's like she's like surrounded by red on both sides, but then her face isn't in the red. They just cut a hole in a gel. It's just like so simple.
Yeah, just back to basics.
They also, I'm sure you could tell, but they use rear projection for the driving scenes.
Yes. I feel like we don't use that. We need to do that more.
And get this, one of the things that I realized as I was reading the description that's just like tickles my filmmaking brain so much. They shot the backdrop for the rear projection, what she's driving past, on a digital camera. It was a Sony NEX6, which actually means that they got probably a crisper, better kind of rear projection image than a movie actually shot in the 60s would have been able to do.
Yeah.
Because then you're shooting film on film and you have multiple layers of film grain.
Yeah.
Here, it's all just under one layer, which is something that you can only do now with the combination of digital and film technology, which like...
only they could back then.
Truly, it's like it's modern technology making the classic technology all the better.
Yeah.
Which like that's just so satisfying.
That makes so much sense now that it was a little bit crisper.
Biller also the craft style practices witchcraft during production. She genuinely paints Elaine's apartment with the colors from the Thoth tarot deck. So that's the decor inspo. And speaking of period authenticity, the tampon was real.
Well, if you're gonna make a tampon, someone on set's got one.
Make it real. Why not?
Also, just gonna shout out the fact that most men have not seen a tampon actually kind of broke my brain.
Wild. I haven't researched that, but it feels true. That feels true.
It feels pretty true.
That feels true.
Yeah.
I
most of them don't even know how
buy
it goes
it.
in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most men think you can't pee with a tampon in. Let's be honest.
What a world.
What a world.
What a world.
Burn it all.
Truly.
Amazing.
Love. Yep. So, cast and crew, this was a very kind of like classic audition process, appropriate for a film with so many like homages to the bygone days of Hollywood. And when she found Robinson, Biller cast her based on finding her, quote, very poised and very self-possessed. She had a particular quality to her. It's very different than most people nowadays. And the two of them watched a lot of films looking for like sociopathic characters.
Oh, for Elaine. Okay.
For Elaine.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
And Biller then, after she'd cast Samantha Robinson, went back, rewrote parts of the script from their conversations to incorporate more of Robinson into the character, which I love when a director does that. Love. She had a lot more trouble, actually, apparently, casting Trish, because she said, quote, I couldn't find someone who wasn't just playing it totally bitchy. The part wasn't supposed to be English, but it was only women who were not American who could pull that off, which I thought was just hilarious.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Which, like, I feel like it really adds something to that character, and it adds to the camp of all of it. You know?
For sure. She was perfect. It had to have been so hard to find someone to cast opposite of
Samantha
and then make
Robinson.
this like weird it's just such a fever dream of a movie to have her like live in the same reality.
Totally.
That's hard.
Well, especially like it feels, one of the notes that I made this time was that it feels to me almost like the men and the women in this movie exist in different time periods. Like
Mm.
the men, like Wayne feels very much like a modern bro in some ways
Oh.
almost. And
He,
all the women are so 70s.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So 60s or 70s. What were you going to say?
No,
No?
nothing.
Okay. Great.
I forget now, so
I'm so
yeah.
sorry.
I think I was just gonna say Wayne just feels so slimy. That has nothing
Yeah,
to
he's
do with
very
anything.
slimy. He's a
He's just
slime. I
yeah,
mean, all the men are so slimy.
he's
Mm,
extra slimy.
yeah. She also, great job casting men with like 60s jaw. It's
I know. Well, fucking what's his name? The main lead guy. Did he not look
insane.
like John Cena and
Oh
Zac
my God,
Efron had a
he
baby?
does.
It threw me for a loop.
But like a
Also,
baby
tiniest head.
from back in time. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
weirdly tiny head, but with
Yeah.
such big features on it.
Broad
It's
shoulder.
disorienting.
He was like made. I'm convinced he was not a real human being. He was
The
AI'd into
only
this.
CGI in that movie.
Sorry, just had to shout out how
Oh my
wild he
God, that's
was.
so funny.
What a casting job. He's never
Truly.
worked on anything ever.
He came into existence specifically for the making of The Love
Yeah.
Witch and then disappeared back into the 1960s.
Yeah, into the ether.
Um,
Sorry.
No. She also, Anna Biller compares her approach a lot to Cassavetes, where she kind of like
Oh.
worked a lot with them before getting to set and then gives very little direction on set.
Oh, okay. Love.
She said, quote, most of the actors weren't directed by me at all. Samantha Robinson was directed, but not in any style. She was directed to pull the truth of the character out of herself. I wanted to see how she could find the character. So she's taking this very kind of like, I'm going to step back, see what you bring to the table, and then
Like if I need to
help
adjust.
shape it from there, kind of.
Sure.
Shot mostly in LA and Humboldt County, which is north of San Francisco.
Okay. I was trying to figure out, we thought maybe Northern
California. It's, I think, Arcata, California?
Arcadia?
It's
Arcata? Yeah, I know what you're talking
Arcata.
about. I've seen it
yeah.
on the map.
Yes. Yeah, that one. Great.
I know what you're talking about.
I spent very little time in Northern California, guys.
There's
Sorry.
a lot of places in California.
And a lot of the names look very similar. They also had 2 weeks of soundstage work at like a converted warehouse. The tea room was shot at the Herald Examiner building in LA, which I thought was really interesting. And as we've been talking about, she makes a lot of stuff for this herself. One of the wildest examples is the pentagram rug. She hand crocheted that herself over the course of 6 months.
Whoa, they need to sell that thing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
No
Well, because
way.
she couldn't find what she was looking for anywhere else. And again, in her classic Anna Biller fashion, she's
She's
like,
like,
well,
"I'll
I'll
do
just
it."
make it. How hard could it be?
God.
Very hard,
Fuck people
but
that
she
are that
does it.
talented.
Yeah. It's insane. She said the Renaissance
God.
costumes were the thing that took her the longest.
She made all of them.
She made all of them by hand.
Oh,
She said it took her a full year of working full time.
they're beautiful.
They're incredible and so detailed.
I'm surprised they weren't like sourced from
Yeah.
60s, 70s. I mean, that
All
would cost
her.
a fortune and be so hard to find, but
All her.
wow.
All handmade
God
by her. I
damn.
don't think she even had like anybody helping her at
That's
all.
insane.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to get over that.
And so I was like, how did she get so good? Well, quote, my mother's a fashion designer, so my whole life she was sewing. She was always designing, and she did some of her own sewing, and I just watched her. When I learned, I kind of just learned on my own, and I made some really terrible pieces before I started. She also says, I was like, where is she finding all these props from? Quote, all the people at the prop and scenery houses all around Hollywood knew me because I was there all the time. I used to get all my scenery from Warner Brothers, MGM, and Universal, but all of the scene docks have closed down. I now go to salvage places and pick out old windows and doors. That's how I put my sets together. A door here, a fireplace there. It takes years.
Yeah, as someone who like I extensively just secondhand shop my entire life, my mom kind of got me into it. You can find anything that you think about.
It's amazing.
It takes time.
Yep.
It takes time and it takes a lot of looking.
And
oh, I love that about her.
It's so satisfying, right? And she
Wow.
says people are talking to her about like people don't really make films this way. Like this is a lot.
It just sounds like in like the best way possible. It sounds like community theater.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you really do just like source and save and hold and work on like it might take years to get there, but you do. And it so it kind of reminds me of just like old theater productions.
100%. And the acting style is very theatrical
Oh,
too.
for
So
sure.
I think it has kind of that
That's
sort
so
of a,
fun.
obviously there's also parts of this that take place with a stage, with theater
Yeah.
performances. So like I think it all kind of is playing into that world. But she says, quote, a lot of independent filmmakers do the costumes and props and do everything, but it's just like they're shooting in somebody's house and there aren't that many props, you know what I mean? I was like, I can't afford these objects, so I'll make them. I can't afford a Renaissance wardrobe, so I'll make it. Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
I gotta get a sewing machine.
I,
I gotta
I
learn how to
would
sew.
I
I have a
had the
tiny
same
one.
reaction
Yeah.
to this. I was like, okay, I've got to
Um,
make a Renaissance
I know.
wardrobe.
I
Yeah.
want to make like a little jester outfit now.
Oh my god. Al the Jester, I love that. Yeah.
On the inside.
Um so this premiered at the International Film Festival Rotterdam, where it was
Mm,
the only new film shot on 35 mil. It then went on to the Cannes Film Market, where it
okay.
got scooped up for distribution by Oscilloscope. And in an
Mm,
incredibly rare turn of events, it's an immediate hit with critics.
really?
Um, although not necessarily in the way Anna Biller wants.
Oh.
It holds a 95% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes.
Holy crap.
95,
Damn.
but a 61% from viewers, which is
God, no one's on the same page
no one's
about
on the
films
same
ever.
page. Everyone's entitled to their own wrong opinion, but they're that kind of disparity in that direction is weird for a horror film, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that this is such a film nerds movie.
Yeah.
Like it's so if you're not already a fan of like B movies from this period of
Mm-hmm.
film history and of like specifically the kind of like hammer horror that she's referencing, um,
Yeah.
it's just gonna feel stiff to you
Yeah, for sure.
and probably really slow. But if you are familiar with it, I think it can feel really homey, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's
Mm-hmm.
something about this that just like almost makes me feel like a kid again, like
Oh,
that
for sure.
childlike experience of watching movies,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that I just associate with that period of Technicolor
Mm-hmm.
like spectacle. It earned a lot of genre nominations like Fangoria Chainsaws, got
Makes
nominations
sense.
for specific parts of the filmmaking process, especially the costumes.
Oh, yeah. I
Um,
imagine.
but A.O. Scott for the New York Times went on the record saying that Biller should get an Oscar nom for Best Screenplay, which obviously didn't happen. But interesting to hear it getting that kind of
Yeah. I don't know if like
recognition.
that's what I would give it an Oscar for
Not best
necessarily.
screenplay necessarily.
Wardrobe.
Yeah, wardrobe,
Sound.
direction.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
that is the most direction you
Yeah.
can do. But I mean, it did make me think a little bit about how much things are shifting even just between 2016 2017 when
Mhm.
this was coming out and on the award circuit versus now when the substance is
I
getting
know.
nominations for
I
the
know.
oscars, where it's like we're
Yeah.
kind of
We
moving in a direction of this
yeah,
coming
imagine
to the
if this
forefront.
came out now,
I
what
feel
people would be
like
saying about it.
it would have a better
Yeah, it would have
chance.
a bigger buzz. Like I don't even really
Yeah,
remember hearing about this at
it
all.
very much was like a cult hit.
Yeah.
Um, so Scott also gave this great quote in his original review of the film saying, Miss Biller's movie, like its heroine, presents a fascinating, perfectly composed, brightly colored surface. What's underneath is marvelously dark, like love itself. Which, like, ooh,
Yeah.
happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
um, this is obviously, one of the newest films I've covered. Still,
Mm.
as you were just saying, pretty underground. But the New Yorker in 2021 included Elaine on its list of the best performances of the 21st
Oh
century, which I think
wow.
well fucking deserved. Like,
Yeah.
she's doing
She's
something so
insane.
precise in this movie.
Yeah, and it's so its own thing, and to see a performance that feels so uniquely its
Yeah.
own is
So
hard to
it
do.
really, there's nothing else like it out there. And I think in particular, I want to shout out the voice because
Mm.
there is something about, she's not doing like a transatlantic accent. And I
Mm-mm.
really appreciate that it's
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
like feigning a period quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something about the way the intonality, the breathiness of it,
Mm-hmm.
where you can tell that she listened to a lot of Marilyn Monroe, a lot of,
Oh, for
you know,
sure. Yeah, there's a little raspiness of it.
there's some of
I
that.
don't know
There's
if
some
raspy
Lana
is the
Del
word.
Rey, like, but like
Yeah.
there's a lot of um specificity to like the way she's using her body in terms of her voice, her the way she carries herself, like the stiffness in her
Mm.
spine,
Mhm.
unreal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like this character just feels so tense to
Yeah,
me in
yeah.
every moment. There's so much with like eyelid acting.
I
Like
know.
the
Oh,
way
her
she's
shots of her
moving her
eyes.
eyelids, which I also have to say when we get to your segment, if it looks like I'm getting doll eyes, I made the mistake of putting on false eyelashes for this episode, which I haven't done in fully a
Oh my
decade.
gosh. What a
And it's
commitment to
reminding
you.
me it is reminding me how much that makes your eyelashes do weird shit.
I
And
know. It really feels like you're not in it, or actually I should say it makes you feel like you are in your own body,
yeah, very much. Like
you
you're
know?
you're constantly thinking about
Yeah,
them
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And
They kind of just are, you can see them. And
yeah,
so you
and
feel
so
just
and so I shout that out because I feel like it's part of the performance because she's wearing them in every
yeah.
scene.
Yeah, her eye makeup's
Um,
insane.
it is wild.
Yeah.
So now we come to the controversy.
What we're
I
getting here.
oh my god,
I don't
I
know what this is.
struggled a lot with trying to figure out how to talk about this, especially because I remembered that there was a controversy around
Okay.
Annabelle and I'd forgotten what it
Oh.
was, and it took me a long time in my research to find what it was, and I realized it was because I don't necessarily feel the same way about the movie that people do,
Okay.
who take this specific view on it. But a lot of it comes down to art versus artist separation.
Ah,
So
got it.
that's,
We talk about that a lot, I
we
feel
talk about
like.
that a
Yeah,
lot. That's the
yeah,
can of worms we're opening
yeah.
here
Yeah.
because Anna Biller has,
Oh, great.
it's
Oh,
hard to
shit.
find all of it online because she's scrubbed a lot of it. She,
Really?
at one point, posted some, at least to my understanding, not explicitly turfy, but like vaguely turf flavored
Oh,
shit, and
shit.
then deleted
Oh,
it,
whoa.
which like is
No.
so heartbreaking.
Oh, why
Um,
do people have to be
why do people have to be
assholes?
like that? Especially people who are making stuff that is so like I just have so much admiration for it and for the
Yeah. Oh,
commitment and
no. That's
for
not the direction I thought you were going.
and it's so heartbreaking, and I think that's part of why I, like, almost feel like I blocked it out because the
Mm.
movie is so stunning and
Yeah.
so like, I find it to be so
It was so inspiring to
so
watch.
inspiring and so really, like, incisive in the way it makes fun of men,
Oh
and
my God, it's amazing.
and it really does feel very feminist to me,
Yeah.
and it's it's difficult it's difficult to reconcile these things, especially because again, in classic Anna Biller fashion, she then will say the exact opposite, where she'll be like, I know that this rumor has been going around. I brought in a quote
Hmm.
from her saying that
Oh
too.
gosh, yeah. I don't know if I
Because
trust her.
well, that's exactly the thing, which is why I wanted to kind of frame this whole discussion that way, because it's
Yeah.
like I genuinely can't tell how much she might just be trolling people, either with the
Yeah.
things she's posting or with her art. Like,
Huh.
there is so much that is just very hard to read what she really means and what
Hmm.
she's saying as satire. And,
Yeah.
like, it's just the
Well, if you make
lines
a
are
movie like this,
blurry.
you gotta be a little bit of a like,
Yeah, the lines are blurry.
yeah.
So let's see.
Huh.
Here's the quote
Okay.
that was like the most recent comment that I could find, which is from Biller from a tweet from April of last year.
Oh shit. Really
Saying
recent.
really recent, saying, quote, since people have been lying about me in the media, I'd like to set the record straight. I don't believe in the satanic panic. That was a big part of kind of where this controversy came out. She posted some things that seemed like she was saying the satanic panic is real, which
Yeah.
like kind of ties into some dog whistly shit.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um
yeah.
so she says, I believe trans people should have the same rights as everybody else. My politics lean far left. I am not a gender essentialist, but a feminist. I think a lot of what people and what I struggle with in watching this film and trying to see how much can I separate the art from the artist
Mm-hmm.
and how much does this feel to me like um a reaction to the artist versus a reaction to the art is that people can people have read The Love Witch as very bioessentialist,
I
which
mean,
it's there.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
it's there. It's talking about period magic and
Yeah.
like the language that's used around like wombs and stuff like that
Yeah.
is very bioessentialist. It also, to me at least, in the context of the movie, reads as um because the main character is such an unreliable narrator, it doesn't feel to me like the movie is necessarily endorsing when she's saying these things, particularly because she says all of this stuff about like what inherent femininity is
Right, right.
and then ends up miserable.
I was gonna say, yeah, unreliable source
Mhm.
character. Also, like, in the context of this film, that's it's talking about this specific topic with
Like,
this specific character, and that's their
yeah.
issues that
Well,
they're
and
having
like
is these very binary issues.
very
You know what I
much, and
mean?
like a
So
lot of
I
like
don't know if you can put that on everything.
neo-paganism is very bioessentialist. It
Yeah.
is very binary.
Yeah.
And like I don't
I
I
mean,
don't know how much you can necessarily blame Anna Biller for that, although we definitely can blame her for whatever turf shit she said and
yeah, yeah,
deleted.
for sure. Hold her to
To
that.
me, I don't feel that from the movie itself
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's the topic of this movie and
very
this character.
much.
So I wouldn't put that on that. But if she said some fucking turf shit,
Yeah,
fuck that.
and again, I couldn't find exactly what it
Oh
was, and I
man,
wish I could have
wild.
to be able to hold her accountable for it.
Yeah, but maybe I feel like she's also just not such a big like filmmaker people talk about that
Very
she could
much.
probably just scrub the internet really easily
Yeah, yeah,
without
and it
people making a
seems like she
fuss.
has, and I'm conflicted on that too because I'm like, did she do that because she recognized that she was wrong, or did she do that because she didn't want to get called out for it? We don't
Who
know.
knows? Yeah.
Um, and there's also a part of me that's like, were we really expecting a like really nuanced take on the difference between sex and gender from a cis woman making an homage to 60s pulp horror?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
was
It's
that person ever going to be the person who is going to like get a really good nuanced take on that in this film
yeah,
anyway?
yeah, yeah.
Um, you may feel very differently than I do. That's a lot of why I said I was really nervous coming into this
Hmm.
conversation because it's very like, it's up to you as a viewer how it
I was
feels.
gonna say like the just to not stay on it too long, but
Yeah.
the separation of art versus artist,
Hmm.
it depends on the art and it depends on the artist for me.
Exactly.
It really
100%.
does. There's some artists now I just can't. I
Mhm.
can't, and there's
Mhm.
some I have so much of myself inherently in their
Mhm.
art
Mhm.
that I can still hate them. So it for
Yeah,
me it totally depends. It
I
totally depends from
strongly
case to
agree. And
case.
like I think that's valid and I
Yeah.
kind of just say leave it up to you.
Yeah. I
Watch
had
it,
no
see how it
idea.
feels to you, especially because again, I went in this time having read all about that beforehand and ready to like rip it to shreds, to be
Yeah.
like, let's tear this turf down.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't really find a whole lot
Sure. So leave it up to
so yeah, leave it up,
yeah, I
which
might
isn't to say it's not there. It's just to say also maybe I'm not the most qualified person to find that.
yeah.
But it's really it's interesting and it's complicated. So, I wanted to talk about that before going into a little mini film theory rant corner because I don't want that to be what my film theory mini
Oh,
rant
yeah, yeah,
corner is
yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to talk about. But I don't want that also to be the note that I end
Sure,
on.
sure.
So, to get into something that's like a little bit more
Oh, no. Here
um
we go.
more just
Buckle down.
like heady film
Oh,
theory shit.
God.
Sorry,
Oh,
guys.
no.
I want to talk about the concept of pastiche.
Oh, great. I don't even know what
um,
the fuck that means. You
so,
gotta give me a little cheat sheet before we record these episodes,
cheat sheet
y'all.
on pastiche. Pastiche is basically it's like a term that's kind of related to homage, but it sort of is specifically used to, and this isn't me giving like a good dictionary definition, this is just like the context that I think of for
Okay,
it.
perfect. Love
Um,
that, actually. That's a definition.
it's like stuff that takes a lot of inspiration from a lot of stuff, especially um, like pop culture stuff from a
Okay,
specific period or place, like not highbrow inspiration, quote
okay,
unquote,
sure.
um,
Okay, I
that
feel
then
like I've
like
heard this word before.
collages bits and pieces from a bunch of those things together to create something that's kind of it's a term that sometimes has a little bit of a derogative sense to it. I don't think it necessarily has to. But it's kind of,
Okay, I know
like
where
a
you're coming from.
collage
Yeah.
of, like some early Quentin Tarantino has been referred to as pastiche.
Sure.
In that,
Okay. I
like,
feel like I've heard this word in conversation before.
yeah, where like Kill Bill pulls a lot from like Hong Kong action movies
Sure.
in a way that is kind of pastiche.
Got it.
So that's like an example. And this film has been called pastiche a
That
lot.
makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And Anna Biller hates that.
Oh, of
And
course.
so I wanted to bring in some of her quotes about it because I found it really interesting and I wanted to hear your thoughts on whether or
Yeah,
not it's
sure.
pastiche. So she says, quote, "Everything in the movie comes from some kind of personal experience, which is another reason it irritates me when people call it pastiche. It's so personal. It's too cold to call it a pastiche. I think that's actually why people like it. It's funny, the same people who call it sexploitation or pastiche or say it's all these cold things, the people who like the film, I don't think would like the film if it was like how they say it is. They like it because it's real. It's based on real emotions and real things that happen to people, real psychological truths." And then, well, let me pause there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, doesn't she like? Here's the thing. Yes, they can come from a real place.
That doesn't mean it's
There's
not
a yes.
pastiche.
I was gonna say there's a yes and here, and there's the
Yes.
thing. So yes,
Yeah.
and people can like it for that. Also, people can like it for being pastiche.
100%.
Also, they come from my experiences.
Yeah.
That bitch, you watch things as references
Absolutely.
too. You pulled from everything. Just because it was your experience, well, that doesn't mean you didn't pull it.
100%.
You didn't just
also,
make this film up without seeing anything.
Right. Well, and also I think it is.
So it feels like.
And the movies we watch affect the way we experience the real things
That's
that
why
happen
I'm like,
to us.
girl, stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that one, girl, stop.
Girl, stop. Love that we're on the same page.
I don't know.
On that.
Okay, you're the same page.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, especially because I don't think pastiche is a bad thing.
Also, like, offended or not, like, people like it. I don't know what to say. Like, they're gonna say what people are gonna put context to it how they want. They're gonna call it what they want. You know.
I also kind of feel like we can get overly obsessed with an idea of things needing to be like original when the whole history of art is people stealing things from each other. And it's
right?
to me more about like how do you collage the pieces together.
Absolutely.
Also,
if you're putting art out there, like especially in film school, everyone says you can make what you want, but like when we would get like classroom critiques of our film, our teachers wouldn't let us say anything back.
Interesting.
We were not allowed to review anything. We had to just sit there and just be like, okay. And if people couldn't, they would make you leave the room. And then they would like give you a written up thing of what it looked like.
Whoa.
If they knew someone was going to try and like talk, and you just had to sit there and listen to it, because when your art goes out there, you can't sit there and talk to every single audience member and be like, well, actually, this is what I meant. Well, actually, this is what this means.
Yeah. Triangle of artist and audience, baby. Like it's all through your participating.
Yeah. So.
And then
part 2.
Then I found an Anna Biller quote that is so like something that I've said almost word for word on the podcast before that I just had to bring it in because it made me feel validated and also called out. This is her talking specifically about the Laura Mulvey essay on the male gaze.
Okay.
She says, quote, "I have my own gaze. I'm a filmmaker and a voyeur. What does that have to do with a man? Are people saying that I've adopted how a man looks and that's the way I look? I know for a fact that's not true because I've been a voyeur my whole life since I was about 2 years old. I've been watching movies since that age and fantasizing about these glamour queens before I even knew what a man was or anything like that. Aren't they saying women don't have a consciousness, their own brains, their own desires, their own ways of looking?"
Oh my God, this really is. That's a quote by Anna Biller, not Siena.
Wild, right? So... Not
also being like, I've been a voyeur since I was 2
years
old.
Like,
stop! I need a T-shirt that says
so me coded. So again, Anna Biller, very complicated figure.
Yeah.
Don't know what to make of her. Don't feel like I'm the most qualified person to make anything of her. End up on the side of feeling like there is merit in her art.
Yeah,
at least
for sure. I really, I mean, in 2016 to do this, it's when you had everything going against you, because that just, it wasn't what was trending. Like, again, we're seeing things trending in this way.
She was so ahead of her time.
For sure.
Yeah. This, like, again, if this came out in 2025, this would be like the movie of the year.
My God, can you imagine if this came out now? Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Let's see. Do I have anything fun to end on? I feel like that's pretty much it. Is there anything
No.
you want to touch on? What would
No.
you rate this?
Oh, that's a complicated question.
Because it is so its own thing that it's like,
I don't know.
yeah,
What would you? I'm like
I
struggling
know.
with like a 4?
I think I would give it a
I
4
think.
because it's not a perfect movie. It's
No, I
not a
mean
perfect
this.
movie.
It kind of like goes, I think, all over the place. Kind of the same way Elvira does.
Yeah, they're so
There's like,
similar in ways.
yeah, there's lots of
Yeah.
like plot holes. I don't think the
Mhm.
script is really solid. I
Yeah.
think that could have been fine tuned, but like visually, I thought it was so interesting to see like modern technology, modern cars, and
That
there was like a lot of just
the combination of
weird.
time periods I love.
Yeah,
I
the set.
love.
So 4, I think the point off for just like
Yeah.
cohesion
Cohesion
issues.
/ possible
Yeah,
transphobia.
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
agreed.
Yeah.
But loved watching it because again, I just feel like it took me outside of myself. And same way like Possession did in a very,
Yeah.
very different way.
Yeah.
Very
They're
different watch experiences, but like
so different, but also so I'm sure she watched
I feel like
Possession.
a palate cleanser of like you feel stuck in a horror thing. I feel like
Yeah.
watch Possession or watch The Love Witch.
They're
to get
very
yourself
like there's
outside.
nothing like either of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah.
So
I feel like there's a lot that has since both of these movies tried to crib bits from them, but I think both Possession and The Love Witch are movies that just kind of like exist in their own weird female psychosis category.
so I think like if you like The Substance, watch these other two
yeah,
to just get yourself like a little bit
a little
thinking
bit of
about
that
the
hit.
genre.
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah,
yeah.
it's so
Finally
again.
get to see it.
It's very like I felt pretty confident that you would like it, but again, it's so you really have to be a fan of the stuff that it's referencing.
For sure. For
to-
sure. It wouldn't be impactful otherwise. You'd just be
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is this?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Why?
is bad.
Yeah. Which is a lot of, why it has a 61% from audiences.
Yeah.
That's
You
yeah.
just don't get the context.
Yeah. So that's The Love Witch.
Yeah. Take a break
Take a little break, get some love potions, come right back.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll be right back.
Know how much you love stories of horror and gore. Meet our sponsor, Beasley Books, the independent bookstore owned by author George R.R. Martin in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Beasley specializes in autographed titles, rare editions, and speculative fiction, which includes sci-fi, fantasy, and of course, horror. You can find many authors whose adaptations we've covered at Beasley, including Stephen King, Clive Barker, and more, alongside the likes of Nick Cutter, Shirley Jackson, and Anne Rice. Visit the Santa Fe storefront Wednesday through Sunday at 418 Montezuma, or shop online anytime. I don't know why I'm Irish now, but you can find them at BeasleyBooks.com or on Instagram at BeasleyBooks418. And make sure you use code SPLICE10 to save 10% when you shop online. SPLICE10 to save 10% when you shop online. Bye.
And
we're back.
with a breathy sigh.
Yeah.
Trav informed us in the break that my tidbit should have been a titbit.
And he's so right. And I'm so mad at us.
Remember the time I accidentally called it a
Right
tidbit?
there. Yeah, we've done this before by
God
accident.
damn
We
it.
couldn't get it on purpose. God damn.
I don't know. The wits have run out. We've been
Yeah.
doing like back-to-back episodes, so I feel like
Ugh.
sometimes the puns are in less supply these days. So.
Truly.
And you're filming this weekend, so we got a lot of,
no, my
I just was sick
brain-
over the weekend. We got a lot of things happening.
Things have been happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm proud of us that we're continuing to chug on through.
just for you guys. We
Just
love you
for
guys.
you.
We don't want to
Yeah.
we don't want to miss a Monday for
Yeah.
you all.
Never. It's never gonna
Um,
happen.
Yeah.
I feel like there was something else that we thought about during the break that we were going to shout out on
Oh,
air,
I
and
don't
now I
know.
can't remember what it was.
I think just reminding people that we're playing the Love Witch on the big screen. So yeah.
You
anything?
had like a point about the Love Witch that was really good, that was funny, that now I can't
Oh, I
remember.
said Elaine and Trish really because we were
Yeah.
talking about like the binaries
Yeah.
of and like how it was so binary like focused. And I said
Mhm.
Elaine really should have just dated Trish.
Yes.
They could have lived
Yes!
happily ever
It's
after
so
together.
true.
'Cause, yeah, they both end up unhappy. They
Yeah.
could have been with each other.
Well, like
So,
we see that, yeah, what Elaine's
both-
doing is
I-
not working
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
So
She just needed to switch teams.
yeah. If only.
So.
Part 2. The
Yeah,
Love Witch Part 2. Yeah.
Siena makes it.
Ooh, I would enjoy that too much.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Shall we?
Yeah, we'll
dive
just dive
on
into
in?
mine.
Yeah.
Bear with me, everybody. I'm coming off a sickness, and my body attacked itself,
No.
and
Ow.
I have brain fog.
Yeah.
So
It's also foggy and snowy this morning, and I said coming in today, my brain feels like the weather outside. It's
just the fog hovering over the eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
But we kept it light, I think, this week. So
Yeah.
Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, 1988. I thought it was really cool. I didn't know where to put this, so here's my bit tit. Is Marvel Comics actually released a magazine-sized comic book adaptation of the film, and so you can actually buy it on eBay. It's like $50.
Oh, that's so cool.
I thought that was really cool.
I love that.
Yeah, I love when there's that kind of like pop culture crossover, but it's like it's the film, which I think is really cool. It's
That's
not
so
just an Elvira
satisfying,
comic.
yeah.
Description. I have not read this aloud, so we'll see what I wrote down. Description.
Oh, I can't wait.
Elvira, Mistress of the Dark,
Mhm.
is a 1988 comedy horror movie. Upon arriving in a small town where Elvira has inherited a rundown mansion, the
Mhm.
famous horror host must battle an evil uncle and townspeople who want her burned at the stake.
Mhm.
So,
Good.
Yeah.
Good job, Al.
Thank you. I also have taglines.
Oh, yes. I'm so glad yours has multiple.
Multiple. I mean,
Does it have a pair?
I missed the joke of the pair also today, that it was a pair of tits.
What a pair.
I
yeah.
forget that Elvira is so tit focused jokes, boob jokes. I don't know why.
Didn't forget that.
I don't know why. I think I'm just so used to seeing those things, you know? They're always just there.
See, I feel like because I'm not
I
so
look
used
her
to
in the
seeing those
eyes,
things,
Siena.
I'm just like, yep, that's where my brain is.
Yeah, I was like, no push-up bra for me today. But so taglines, they're fine. I think they're just, you know, she's so camp and cheese and everything like that. I'm gonna pick and choose a couple of them because they're like not great. One of them's just, here's something you'll want to pick up.
So also a boob joke.
Yeah, I think a boob joke also. Her tagline, unpleasant dreams.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
good.
Elvira makes her big scream debut in her hot new comedy.
Terrible.
Yeah. And then in the last one, here comes Elvira, there goes the neighborhood. I hope people say that when I'm coming.
Oh my god.
I'm about to move buildings in my complex. I hope they say that.
There goes the building.
There goes the building.
As soon as Bean and
Here
Mabel,
comes
your
Elvira.
dogs, walk in, there goes Elvira. There goes the building.
So those are the taglines. We have. I'm going to preface with. I said it earlier, but there is a behind the scenes making of this film.
Tell me the name again.
I think it's called Too Macabre.
Okay.
The making of Elvira. If you just like search making of, the name of it pops up. She also has autobiographies out where she obviously talks a lot about this stuff. So I feel more or less I'm like skimming the surface. I like couldn't find the length of things that I wanted to find for this.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm gonna kind of just be skimming over the surface. I think
Jazz, baby.
Are you familiar with like Elvira?
This was my
like
first time watching an Elvira product.
Really?
Yeah, I like knew of the existence of Elvira, but I'm gonna be honest, my main like Elvira kind of like became a thing in my consciousness when the news story about her being queer came out.
Oh,
that
makes sense.
Yeah, I live in such a queer bubble that that was when she really like popped into my consciousness.
Elvira.
I was like, I need to get into this.
Yeah. Which we'll touch on here a little bit. So
Good.
I'll just be kind of skimming over. So we have director James Signorelli, which is a great last name.
Haven't we talked about him before?
Signorelli?
It looked familiar.
you might recognize his name. He, prior to this, had only had one feature film to his credit, but the NBC president at the time, Brandon Tartikoff, actually brought James in. So this is like NBC Productions. We'll get into that a little bit more. Brandon, he brought in James based on his extensive parody work at the time for a little television program called Saturday Night Live.
That's probably where I know
Yeah,
him
so
from.
some of you
That's so
obviously you recognize
cool.
the name. I'm sure Trav's probably nodding his head in the corner. But he was a segment producer and director on Saturday Night Live from 1976 until 2013. So very
Whoa.
robust. So no film credit,
Yeah.
but like obviously
Yeah.
his tons of work to show for it.
Yeah.
And in a film that's like campy and kind of taking something like this character is on TV, even though he's producing these TV segments, it has really big pop cultural impact, so they felt safe going with him. James wasn't Cassandra Peterson's, Elvira's, first choice for director, though. She actually wanted Tim Burton to direct, but at the time, he was in production for Beetlejuice, so he couldn't do it. I don't know if he would have said yes. Let's be like, for real? I don't know.
Also,
maybe.
honestly, I
He's
feel
younger,
like that's
younger
true.
career.
This was kind of like prime Tim Burton to do something like this. But I also kind of feel like had it been Tim Burton, maybe there would have been a little less Cassandra Peterson voice in there, and it very much felt like her vision.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would have. Have you seen like Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
I still haven't seen it.
So Tim Burton also.
Terrible.
And then Cassandra and Paul Rubens, as we'll get into, are friends. So I think it like maybe would have had a little bit more of that.
That makes
camp.
sense. That makes
maybe
sense.
too similar. Who knows? So
Interesting.
I thought it was kind of cool that she wanted him. Who knows what that would have looked like?
Yeah.
Writers, as you mentioned, it feels very Cassandra Peterson. She also had a huge hand at writing this. We have John Paragon, who most famously wrote the 80s TV show Pee-wee's Playhouse, among other things. I grew up watching that. I had like the tapes recorded.
Oh, I love that.
Still so freaking good. He also acted in most of the projects that he kind of wrote for. It kind of blew my mind seeing that because he actually played Jeannie and Terry from Pee-wee's Playhouse, which are like two of the main characters in the show. And then he also cameos in this film as the gas station attendant. So I just love that he likes to kind of like write and also be in things as well. It's kind of fun.
Love a little cameo.
And then in some more Al lore, as I was looking up his IMDb, I feel like no one's going to relate to this. And this is like the most millennial thing I'm going to say ever on this podcast, I think. There was a 90s kids toy called Toby the Terrier. And it was like a little animatronic dog. And you would put in a VHS tape. And it would react to what was on screen. And like in the 90s, that technology absolutely blew my mind as like a 7-year-old.
Oh my God,
and he
it's blowing my mind today.
yeah. And so he hand in hand, I don't know if he voice did it, but he like wrote Toby the Terrier thing. So I'm like, this man has just been my entire like childhood. And I think he's had impact on me in a way I didn't even know. So how did he get the gig for Elvira, Mistress of the Dark? Mistress of the Dark. Him and Cassandra originally met in a famous comedy troupe, The Groundlings, in Los Angeles, which is
of course she's a Groundlings gal.
Yes. Oh my God, and we will get into her history. Cool. So, when she had her movie Macabre show, he actually had worked his way up. He was a reoccurring guest star, then went to writer on the show, and then from that they kind of have just like worked together on many projects together. So
they'd like built trust.
Yeah. And I love that she probably saw him like, or like had him as a guest star, probably like encouraged to have him on there and to see him work his way up. So that's really cool. We also have Sam Egan is credited. He wrote Outer Limits and a show called Quincy M.E. from 1976. I have no idea, but that show is what he was hired from to help kind of like polish up the script. I've never heard of this fucking show, so the fact that he was like plucked from this show to notoriously polish this script, I don't know. I guess that's what this man was known for in Hollywood.
Got it.
So Sam Egan,
Copy
everybody.
on Quincy.
We have I'm going to give short shouts to the makeup artist Robin Buchenzi. We have some great names on this. I don't know why, very 80s names. She was makeup department for the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Of course.
And a bunch of other things, including the Hunger Games and Transformers.
Oh,
so she's got like a very like Hollywood makeup artist career. And then we have They listed him as special makeup artist. I'm assuming that means special effects makeup
Probably.
artist. Steve Laporte, I believe. There's an E at the end.
That also sounds familiar.
So you would recognize him for doing makeup on iconic films such as special effects, I should say, for The Goonies, The Howling, and Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands.
Sick.
And then he also was makeup artist on, which I don't know how he did his schedule for this, Beetlejuice.
Oh, man.
The Lost Boys, Hocus
Whoa.
Pocus, and Galaxy Quest.
Wow.
He has a wild roster of
that's
stuff.
so cool.
So, yeah, just shout out for him. I couldn't find a ton of special effects behind this. Like, you can see the puppet, like the little crock pot. It was just like a little hand puppet, but I couldn't find, I'm sure it's all in the making of, but I couldn't find anything, and it really bummed me out.
Ugh.
So here's where we're going to get into Cassandra Peterson as Elvira.
Mhm.
I wanted to take a second to kind of talk about how she became Elvira and her wild, like, from birth on, she is the most insane career life that I've ever read about, especially on this podcast, but just in general. So
Thank you for giving me the backstory, because
Okay,
I was
this was for
hoping
you.
for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So
'cause,
this is
like,
for you.
I need the education.
and anyone who doesn't know about her lore. So, I tried to kind of, it's a very brief overview,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to go a little bit sequentially. So
Mhm.
just like hang in. I'm not like getting deep into anything because it's
We
not
can
just
go
about
research
her.
if we need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm going to start when she was 18 months old. She had some sort of accident where boiling water was like spilled on her, and so she had horrible permanent scarring from that.
Oh, God.
18 months old, I can't even imagine.
Poor
So just put a
thing.
pin in that.
Pinput.
So she has the scarring. Then at about like 7 or 8 years old, she kind of remembers seeing House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price for the first time, and that was kind of like what she kind of calls her first
Her horror awakening.
Yeah, her meet cute with the horror
I
genre.
love that.
And
Do you remember what yours was? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, God, that's such a great. I don't know. I feel like you know yours. I
Yeah.
feel like I've like gaslit myself. I want to say
It's gone.
I don't know. Like, part of me wants to say it's Pet Cemetery because that's really when I like.
It's
But
when
I
you
had to
have
have seen stuff
cover.
way earlier than that.
Fair.
I don't know.
Ugh, yeah, you know mine is Psycho.
Yeah,
We've talked about it. We've
the
told that
little
story.
baby
Yeah.
Siena sitting and playing the tape over and over.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh,
Did a memory just come back?
It might be The Birds. I rented it so many times from Blockbuster and had all my friends, and I was like 7.
I love that.
So that might have
Yeah,
been
that sounds right. That sounds
the
like
moment
the
where it really
age.
sunk in.
That's so
Yeah, it might have been
I
The
love that
Birds.
it
Oh my
was
God, yeah, we both
Hitchcock
did
for both of
Hitchcock.
us.
Yeah,
That's so
He'll do it to you.
cute. Yeah, he'll do it.
But yeah, House on Haunted Hill. Also, I want to cover one of my all-time favorites. So she remembers that being kind of like the moment for her. She said it gave her nightmares, and it, quote, repelled and fascinated at the same time, as it does.
Yeah, as all good things do.
Yeah, and a little kind of tidbit for that. The character Vincent Talbot in the film was named as homage to the actors Vincent Price and Lyle Talbot, who are obviously famous actors.
Yeah.
So
Was Lyle the mummy? Is that right?
I don't
I
know.
want to say.
I didn't look him. I briefed over and I was like,
Yeah, fair.
if you know him, you'll know him.
Fair. Fact check
Vincent
for us,
Price is my
somebody. Is
dude.
that who Lyle Talbot is? We're working on it. No,
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
I don't know. Trav, are you looking for us?
Yes.
Okay, he is.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Hold,
Just hold a hand when you got it. So through this love of horror films that she discovered, and then obviously this permanent scarring she had, she states in her I think most recent autobiography that I don't have the name of here, that she also kind of like felt like a misfit. I think as a lot of us who love horror often do. And that, quote, in a weird roundabout way, that accident led me to my love of horror and got me started on this path. I look at it as a good thing. So these kind of two sides of her kind of come together. The scarring leads to feeling like a misfit, and then her love of horror. Thank God.
Thank God.
Say,
yeah.
Who knows if she would have gotten to this place.
Yeah.
So kind of dealing with this image of herself as she got older. mixed with this love of horror, she started thinking about creating a new persona for herself that kind of freed her of the self-consciousness that she had. And she said, quote, "I literally adopted another persona who had all the qualities I wanted but couldn't get on my own." So fast forward to like I want to say there's a time in here when she's like 14, and I think I remember, I didn't write it down. I think I remember she worked at some sort of like, I don't want to say like a strip club, but she worked at
Mhm.
some sort of club. They made her put on a bra. She couldn't, like, she had to perform and she wore a bra.
Yeah.
But they put tassels on the bra, and so she learned how to do her famous little
Ugh,
tassel twirl.
ugh.
Which, man, do I want to learn how to do that?
It's so good.
It's so fascinating.
Ugh.
So that kind of happens prior to what I'm about to go into. So fast forward, she's 17 years old,
Mhm.
and she dreams of being a showgirl. What did she quote? Like Anne Margaret's character in the 1964 film starring Elvis Presley, Viva Las Vegas.
Ugh,
Do you have the
amazing.
Yeah.
Lyle
Well,
Talbot?
Lyle Talbot was kind of just in everything.
Oh,
just an
great.
in everything
A ton
guy.
of Westerns, but one that's like
Westerns.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Okay.
I hope
Thanks,
someone else was
Trav.
yelling at
Yeah.
at me the whole entire
I'm sure they
time.
were. Yeah.
Sorry,
I don't know why I
guys.
thought he was the
Famously
mummy.
starring
but-
Vampira.
Oh, Vampira
Ah.
was in it. That makes
That
sense
makes
because that's
sense.
one of her inspirations.
Yep,
So,
there we go.
but at this time, 17 years old, it is Anne Margaret's character in
Got
Viva
it.
Las Vegas. So she convinced her parents to go to Las Vegas
Mhm.
because she really wants to attend the theatrical performance of the show there. It's just like a run of the movie
Mhm,
itself.
mhm.
And during the show,
What'd she do?
in the very movie fashion, someone needs to make a movie about her life. She is like scouted. Someone
my
sees her and is
God.
like, "You need to audition for this show."
I mean, she's stunning.
Yeah.
Like, of
Yeah,
course
yeah,
she
yeah.
gets scouted.
Yeah,
but,
if
like,
no one's seen her outside of makeup, but Jesus Christ. So she's scouted while sitting here 17. So she obviously has to have the permission of her parents
mhm.
to okay this. They do, because I think that age where she was like performing already.
Yeah.
So she gets the gig, and she becomes one of the youngest showgirls in Las Vegas at the time. And of
Wow.
course, while there, who does she meet? Elvis Presley. She goes on a date with him.
What?
A date. They just say one date. I know. I'm like reading this. I'm like, is this
What
for
a
real?
life.
So she goes on a date with him. While on this date, he apparently encourages her to leave Las Vegas to go pursue her singing career. He's just like, "You got
Oh,
pipes, go do it."
yeah.
If Elvis is gonna tell you, if
If Elvis tells you to pursue
you're
your
gonna go do
singing
this.
career,
So
yeah.
she goes to Europe, which it's like you would think she'd go to Hollywood. She goes to Europe. Why? We're skipping over them. Why?
Great. Love that.
Where she's then in a couple Italian pop bands. One's called, it says Latin 80. It has an S on the end though. Latin's 80?
Is that?
I don't know. And then the Snails is the other one. So she does that for a period of time, which is wild to see photos of her doing that. So
cool.
she kind of had her time in Europe, then she comes back to the States. And where does she get a job? Naturally, at the Playboy Club in Miami
Of course.
as a showgirl in 1973.
Yeah, we need this biopic.
I know.
Oh my God.
Truly. And so she joined Hugh Hefner's Playboy modeling agency as a hostess and model. So like really quite the way to kick off your career of like, you want to be a star, you want to be a
Yeah.
showgirl, all these things. And so that was in 1973. In 1981, her character Elvira first appeared on the local Los Angeles show Elvira's Movie Macabre. And both Elvira and her were hit. So like all of this happens in such this like,
Wow.
I feel like 15 years, like all
Yeah.
of this shit kind of
That's
happens for her.
incredible.
Yeah. So
What a
that's kind of like
life.
how
So is it like public access to begin with, or how does her show
public
start?
access. I don't know how TV worked back in 81,
Fair.
if I'm honest.
Like, I'm curious if it was like a,
It was like a produced like NBC.
Okay.
I want to say I think it was
because I think this
think it-
movie had an NBC or
Yeah.
a studio. Like
it did.
a TV
Yeah, I think
studio
her show
credit
did
on it.
too.
Oh, okay,
I wanna say
interesting.
people just took a risk on her. I don't know.
Wow.
I skipped over that part, y'all. So again, yell at us.
Please.
So Oh, and then we'll get to your part. So I said,
Mhm.
as in this kind of like, this is our Valentine's Gay episode,
Yes.
shouting out that she is our queer icon.
Oh, wow.
She came out as sexually fluid in her 2021 memoir called Yours Cruelly, Elvira. And in her memoir, she revealed her long-term relationship with a woman named Teresa, or T as she calls her. And she talked about how she hid her nearly 2-decade relationship with Teresa because rightfully so, she was worried about her image and how that would impact, especially being such like a male-centric
Mhm.
sex symbol at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think her female fan base, we
Oh my
are
God.
here and we are
For sure.
large. I want to say we might be the bigger
Well,
pool
and
at this point,
it's
but
funny because it kind of going back to the Love Witch, it very much feels like I imagine male viewers watch this very differently.
oh
But like
yeah.
knowing what we know now, watching it, I'm just like, this is so gay.
It's
so
so gay.
gay.
Yeah.
She is so
All the
gay.
signs were there. We
Yes.
just decided
Yeah.
to not read
We just
them.
were ignoring them.
Yeah, so that's
We
her.
were distracted.
Yeah, we were too distracted. Also, I think as like a horror genre, like our, I don't know, it's a different kind of
Yeah.
male gaze that happens. I
Yeah.
feel like the horror genre men, you all are really cool and chill.
It's true.
You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
different,
Generally speaking.
very generally, you know who you are. So I'm going to, I think in a way I haven't before, kind of breeze over the cast in a different way.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to go person to person necessarily.
I mean, you gave us so much on
I know. I
Elvira,
was like, I feel
so-
like I had to give a little bit of a
Yeah.
backstory. So, most of the casts that were, most of the roles that were cast in this film were actually given to her friends. She made while working with the Groundlings. So we have Edie McClurg, Lynn Marie Stewart, Daryl Carroll, great name, Joey Arias, Tress McNeil, and John Paragon were all given roles in this because she's like, I'm bringing all my friends along from the Groundlings.
I love that.
And the song Chicken Fried Steak, which you can like
Incredible.
barely, I know, you could barely hear in like a gas station
Mhm.
scene, was an original song performed by Gary Austin,
Oh my God.
who is actually the founder of the Groundlings sketch comedy. So she's really just pooling
That's
and
so
keeping, she's
Keeping
keeping
her
a nice little
people.
bubble. Yeah. The anchor woman played by Tress McNeil, voice actor, this is where we're getting to. She's a prominent voice actor on little shows like The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
She did 651 episodes. And to come full circle,
Oh my God.
she also voiced Booberella, which was a parody of Elvira on The Simpsons as well. So, love that full circle moment.
That's so good.
She also voiced characters for the Animaniacs, Futurama, and a ton of Disney projects. So like
Mhm.
this bitch is like doing her shit.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. And because me and you love a petty moment,
Of course.
the character, so the anchor woman that she
Mhm.
plays, is actually based on a real anchor woman that Cassandra was not a fan of during the days she was at a local television station. So she kind of made her this bitch as a little jab, and I'm
love
sure that woman watched
I
it.
love that.
I'm sure she
Yeah.
watched it. So
Oh, that's so
love that.
satisfying.
We're going to give a little brief shout out to Susan McNabb, who was Cassandra's personal hand and body double.
Oh my God.
Not boob double. Those are all
Yeah,
hers,
that's
baby.
all Cassandra.
But people actually for a long time assumed that they were sisters. And she also did like a bunch of hundreds of Elvira appearances
That's
too.
so
kind of.
cool.
So I think that's really
Aw.
cute. And I think she like after 20 years retired of being like her assistant finally. So they had a long career together.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. In a not so human role, we have Benny the dog, who is not only
so fashionable.
yeah, what a haircut. I kind
What a
of wish
haircut.
people did
It's a
that
choice.
more. It was a choice. Apparently Benny the dog was the biggest diva on set.
Yeah.
Unlike the dog from The Thing, I noted, who made his mark every single time, didn't look down the lens.
Yeah.
This dog was a quote temperamental poodle,
Oh no.
and apparently didn't like anyone except the trainer. So the dog barely ever hit its mark, and it didn't perform its tasks the way, which it does have a big role in this, and it does
Yeah.
a lot of things.
It's a lot to ask for
Yeah.
a dog performer.
Yeah. But they had to do constant retakes because of this. So they said they had to waste a lot of money of just like shooting and shooting again.
For sure.
But not only that, he apparently also attacked actor Kurt Fuller's ankle, and it penetrated the skin so bad that he was left with scarring from it. So the whole time I was watching this, I'm like, that dog's actually snarling because he's pissed at everyone. So you can kind of see the like, I don't know, you can see the distance between them.
There's a possessed quality. Yeah.
Oh, and then this kind of blew my mind. So in a weird, wild, like, could you imagine moment of casting, which we talk about a lot on here, could you imagine this person, this role? There was an unknown actor at the time, who's now an A-list actor, that auditioned for the role of one of the teenage boys. But Elvira said he was too cute to play the role. And then if this actor was cast, that people would probably be like, well, why would she go for Bob if this person was here?
Even though he's a teenager?
But who was this actor at the time?
Was it Johnny Depp?
Brad Pitt. Isn't that wild? Can you imagine little Brad Pitt in the background?
My God,
just like
Bradlet.
Brad Pitt?
Jesus Christ.
Trav's leaving the room. Hold for Trav leaving the room. She apparently, in her casting notes of his audition, she wrote next to I can't say this seriously. She wrote next to his name, Yum Yum. Sorry. Now Warren wants to leave, probably.
Cassandra!
Do you want to leave? Yum Yum. I'm hoping he
Too
was
straight
of
for
age at the
me.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like feminine pretty.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore. He's very like rugged man pretty now, but
back at that age, I could see it.
Yeah. And in a full circle moment, again, Brad Pitt actually later in life purchased the home that she sold in Los Angeles and lived in that for a little while.
That's so funny.
Hollywood, baby. The degrees are 0 at this point.
There you go.
Another actor who almost made it into this film, as you guess, would be Pee Wee Herman himself, Paul Rubens. She had a small cameo in Pee Wee's Big Adventure, not as Elvira. And obviously she was on his show as well, and so he really wanted to return the favor and be in her film, but he was shooting Big Top Pee Wee at the same time, which I haven't seen, so I don't know what that one is. But yeah, so he couldn't make it in there. And then finally, as the role of Elvira's Uncle Vinny, he was originally written specifically for Vincent Price, who declined, unfortunately, because he thought the script was too racy. Which I feel like his agents thought that, and not so much him. Yeah, he's a spicy man.
That doesn't track for him personally, I feel like.
Also, the way I read that, I don't know if someone wrote it wrong, but someone said he passed away due to racy material. I was like, that's not how he died. I didn't read it 4 times.
He sees Elvira's tits, just has an immediate heart attack and is gone. Yeah. It's me, my viewing experience.
So that's our little casting thing. So briefly on script and development, like I said, this movie was produced by NBC, which set up a distribution deal with New World Pictures. Like I said earlier, the president, Brandon Tartikoff, had his kind of sights set on producing an Elvira sitcom at first, but Cassandra was really like, I have my show. It's really good. I really want to take Elvira to the big screen and have this like big debut. And so she didn't want to do another weekly show. And kind of between her star power at the moment with the show being a success and then obviously kind of seeing how well Pee Wee's Big Adventure did, they were kind of like, he was kind of like, okay, I kind of like see the vision. I can see where this is go. So they greenlit it and they financed the film. Speaking of money, brings us to budget. Can you guess how much this was? It was, maybe it's on par, but it just felt bigger than I thought. It's like NBC produced. You gotta think she's like a big hit on TV. It's like, God, the crossover going to like such a campy character into big screen is like a wild jump for me.
Oh, I'm having a hard time with this one.
I gotta fix my lipstick, sorry.
10 million.
Yeah, 7.5.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
I was expecting to be much more off than that.
I know. It just, I don't know. It feels big, but
high for a TV movie from 1988, but it is
right?
Cassandra Peterson.
I know.
So
she got her money.
Good.
Unfortunately, it grossed just 5.5 worldwide.
Aww, should
but
make her money back?
I don't really blame her. So I do think, like we just said, like the jump from taking this character to the big screen. I mean, you had like Tim Burton do it for Pee-wee, and like that just hit. And to
Yeah.
do it again and get the same as I would, it feels hard, right?
Mhm.
But I don't blame her in the script entirely. Just as the film was slated to hit theaters, so like the day before,
Mhm.
New World Pictures filed for bankruptcy. And so the marketing campaign was
Oh,
immediately
fuck.
stopped.
Oh,
They went from
fuck.
like 2,500 theaters down to just like 500, the internet
Oh,
says, give or take. So it completely like wiped it
Oh my god.
out. So for it to even make 5.5,
Yeah.
I think is great. On top of that, like the movie critics obviously were like so brutal about it. So like even just like word of mouth. But
Aw.
I mean, as we know
It's
now,
camp.
and that's the thing, like as we know now, like it's such a
Yeah.
it became a bestseller on home video, and it's one of the highest rated programs of the year when NBC aired it
Wow.
on television in 1990.
Interesting.
So I just think all of those things combined, it just kind
Mhm.
of fell on its face, but it then became one of the highest rated programs. So
Makes
it
sense.
got it back, and we love her, so it's okay. Production began January 20th, 1988, and they shot for 8 weeks, which I feel like is pretty standard. Most of it was shot in the backlots of Universal, and the house that Elvira moves into is dubbed like the Allison house. I forget what show it was on that it was dubbed that originally, but it was on the Universal Studios backlot on Colonial Street,
Mhm.
which has you might notice it from other films like The Burbs, with Tom Hanks, and then
Oh,
1958's Rockabye Baby, which I have to watch that
interesting.
again. I love that movie.
Yeah.
And then they've since altered it for a show that I loved when it came out, Desperate Housewives. So it looks completely different,
Amazing.
but I think it still lives there if you go like on the tram
Wow.
tours.
Very
It just, you
cool.
won't recognize it. And then they also shot at the Warner Brothers backlots on location. Their small town that they have in the movie is actually Midwest Street on the backlots, and it's also featured in Dukes of Hazzard and Stars Hollow in Gilmore Girls,
Oh,
which I feel like
wow. People will
love that
recognize
show.
that. Yeah.
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 So it looks very studio backlotty. So
Mhm.
they did do a couple locations around LA, including the exterior of the house. Where the reading of the will occurs is in a historic Los Angeles mansion. It's called the Hirsch House. I feel like if you live there or been to LA, you've heard of it.
Mhm.
It also is featured in the 1971 horror flick Willard, not the 90s one or the 2000s one that I love,
Oh,
but yeah.
interesting.
And then they
Huh.
shot at a bowling alley in Montrose, California as
Cool.
well. The entire Vegas scene was shot in a
Mhm.
warehouse in the San Fernando Valley. Yeah,
Amazing.
which
As all the best things are.
I mean, it looks very like warehousey too. I love it's like live from the Flamingo, which
Yeah.
the Flamingo's my favorite place to stay in
Ugh,
Vegas because
I've
it's
never been to
cheap and it's
Vegas.
pink and
Ugh.
it's like right in the middle of everything and it's dog friendly.
As all the best things
Yeah,
are.
yeah. Cheap, pink, and dog friendly.
Yes.
um,
That should be their slogan.
yeah. So I feel like this is very much a life imitates art situation as well. So like we know the whole premise of the film is like she has to raise $50,000 to go to Las Vegas to do her
Mhm.
show. The Las Vegas scene was originally omitted from the shooting script, so we weren't going to see it at all, which is a travesty if we didn't get that ending scene of her in
Yeah.
Vegas with the horrible 80s rap that
Oh my god, yeah.
because the NBC execs thought it would be too expensive to build, which
Right.
I get it.
Right.
So they actually shot and edited the film without that scene in it, and when it was screened, the
Mhm.
execs liked it so much that they were like, okay, you can have more money to do this, which again, life imitating art there.
Right.
And she was really pushing for it anyways, so they ended up filming that scene, and they shot it a month later in the warehouse, like I said, and the entire time they filmed that scene, she was actually extremely sick with the flu, which
No.
the show must go on,
Yeah,
baby. She fucking kills that.
It's very Gene Kelly doing Singing in the Rain with like 104-degree fever type energy. Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
It's so
We're
good.
playing
Yeah,
that at the theater too.
yeah, the scene where he sings the title song, he had 104-degree
Can you
fever, which is
imagine?
why he's like, it
Oh,
looks like it's rain on his face. It's sweat.
they're like,
It's
they
sweat.
actually they just
Yeah.
saved
Yep.
money on
Yep.
a makeup
Yeah,
that day. They
no
just
rain
sent him
machine,
home.
just
Like, we're
sweat.
good.
That's not true.
Oh no,
There was a rain machine, but also he's very sweaty,
They
guys.
just poured buckets. Ugh, ew, actually,
Ugh,
gross. Moving on.
Gross.
We also have the iconic scene where Elvira was being burned at the stake. It seemed like one of the hardest for them to shoot because not only did it take
interesting.
5 days for that little
Oh,
scene
God.
for them to shoot, she gives an interview about this too, I think on like a bloody disgusting like look back, but she also had to spend 3 hours at a time tied up there. And then obviously she's like has all the hairspray and the wig and
Mhm.
everything, so they had to put flame retardant on her to keep her. And she was like, the thing they didn't tell you about that is it's really fucking itchy.
Oh,
And so she was
no.
extremely itchy for 3 hours, but her hands are tied, so she can't even itch herself. And she says she's like still gets itchy
This is a
talking about it to this day.
nightmare. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, so she suffered, and even some of the heat from the flames were so intense that it melted parts of her black wig as well. So they really put her in danger for that.
Oh my
Another,
God.
I
That's
know,
wild.
yeah,
Wild.
yeah. Can you imagine?
I'm getting itchy just hearing about it.
Yeah. Also, just for a film like this, you'd think they would do like some sort
Something
of
better?
yeah.
Like,
Instead of sticking your lead
yeah,
up
just
there,
cover her and
just slather her with a little bit of,
flame retardant.
she won't
Jesus
burn. It's
Christ.
fine.
Right.
If she does, she's a witch. I don't
Imagine
know.
if they actually burned Elvira on the set of this movie.
Can you imagine? Oh my God, laws would have changed that day.
Truly.
Another fire scene that we see that's pretty iconic is when the gas station blows up. So they actually dug a 40-foot trench in front of it, and then they filled that with gasoline and explosives, so it gave the illusion that it blew up without actually having to like reset things. They could just kind of blow that up. So I thought that was kind of a fun little.
That's so cool. It's not
Yeah.
a trick, it's an illusion, Michael.
It's an illusion. And then just wanted to shout out the iconic car in this because I posted that on Tumblr so many times. Yeah.
Oh.
So her iconic macabre mobile is what it was called. And this car was made specifically for the film. It's a 1958 T-Bird hardtop that was originally $2,500, which like I would die.
Imagine
And they put
the
in
days.
honestly, I scour. I want to
Yeah.
own a witchy mobile so bad.
Oh my God.
So they put $7,000 worth of customizations in it. So we have like the iconic chain steering wheel. I really want a
Yes.
barbed wire little
It's
mirror
so
thing
good.
now.
It's so good.
I might have to look into that. So she kept the car and she occasionally used it for appearances. But she said although it looked beautiful, it never really worked well. And so in 2021, she auctioned off the steering wheel, the license plate cover, the hood, and the dashboard ornaments for a total of like $20,000.
Nice.
So, yeah, a lot of
Go
these things
Elvira.
are on auction.
That's so
surprisingly.
cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
even the little crock puppet was like sold in auction
I
too
love
for
that.
$2,500. I'm like,
What?
damn.
If I had $2,500,
I
I'd
know.
spend it on the
I
crock pot. That's so
know.
cool.
And so of course we can't talk about this film without talking about the iconic look of Elvira. So we all kind of know the silhouette of Elvira's
Mhm.
dress. It was actually cut in a very specific way, with her hair really long in the back to kind of hide the burn scars that she had. She kind of mentions, I know,
Elvira.
I know. It's funny because like you see her in the bathtub, you don't really
Yeah.
like
I don't
see
notice.
anything,
Yeah.
but she's self-conscious. I
Wow.
have a scar on my face, so I totally
Aw.
understand. She kind of jokes that the costume only showed her good bits, so you know,
I love
she's got
her
to make
so
fun of
much.
herself.
I love
a
her
little
sense
bit.
of humor.
I know.
She's
I feel like a lot of my sense of humor comes from Elvira in that way. All the puns.
You're very Elvira coded.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And we of course can't talk about her without talking about Robert Redding. He worked with Cassandra on the early concepts of Elvira and was not only her costume designer, but he was her makeup artist, wig stylist, and they kind of became a dynamic duo together.
That's so cool.
But it's sad.
Oh no.
Unfortunately, in 1986, so a couple of years before this came out, he passed away from from AIDS complications at the time. I know. I can't imagine like having someone that you've like
that you've
built
this character.
yeah,
with.
like, and you gotta think like those
Yeah.
conversations
Oh
of
my
like
God, and to not be able to take it to the finish line with him. That's
yeah,
so
to the big I know, it
heartbreaking.
kind of hurts. So
Ugh.
she was like absolutely crushed, and the poor wig
Poor
stylist that
thing.
had to be on this film with her, Cassandra was like I hate everything. Everything's wrong. She was like super unhappy with the appearance of her wig. Yeah, so you'll see if you watch the credits, she actually dedicated the film to Robert and
I
even
was wondering
named
who that was.
yeah. And then Bob is actually named in homage to him as well. And I wanted to show you. I know. When you find someone that you creatively collab with and you can speak a language,
there's nothing like that.
there's nothing like it. I've had it like once really with like an old boss of mine. It was just like it fired off and I was just like, this is this can be real.
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Really, yep.
I feel like we kind of do that on the podcast too,
Yeah,
honestly.
I think we do. Yeah.
Fumble through. I have a photo of the original concepts of Elvira. Again, these were auctioned up too for only $2,500.
That's
but it's
wild.
I know. So I'm gonna show you. I'll show the screen. But is that
no.
cool?
Oh, that's
very,
so
like,
cool. The
Vampira.
shapes.
Yeah, but like one of the original concepts. I was like, oh, that's fucking cool.
I love You're so good at finding concept art. What a treat.
love Siena. Yeah, I love the boobs in there. Look on point.
Yeah,
with,
it's an important part of the concept.
We obviously have some like the fun little horror Easter eggs in this. So we have Elvira's dressing room shows 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still, monsters on campus, and then the crawling hands.
Oh, so good.
And then obviously we have Attack of the Killer Tomatoes in the theater with her doing her
incredible.
Yeah,
what a great opener.
Yeah, it's so great.
Yeah,
we had to play that for our like punk rock.
That would
punk
be
walk
really
Wednesdays, guys.
Punk walk Wednesdays.
Fucking send me home.
We're so close.
Kill me with tomatoes, am I right?
We're white at the end.
Tomato.
Tomato.
Critics' response. Mine would be 0. It has 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb.
That's good.
And no surprise, it has a pretty low rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 58% tomato meter, 66 from audiences. So I just feel like she's one of those people like you love her, you hate her.
Yeah, you either get it or you don't. It's either for you or it's not.
Yeah, and in both of these films, I think the script
is not.
They kind of just go off the rails.
Yeah. Which I feel like is very much part of. Like, the gothic is excessive. That's part of what we love about it, right?
I also love that these are, like, gothy, witchy films, but they're so bright and colorful. Like, you would think they would be this very macabre. Like, for her not to like the home she moves into, like, wildly threw me. I'm like, wait.
That seems so up your alley. And then she paints it all of these colors.
Yeah, these,
like, I loved that.
Like 80s montage.
It's so satisfying.
Family, yeah.
Well, and the house looks to me like it's designed to look like the Bates house from Psycho, right?
It looks, actually, that reminded me of something. I don't know, actually.
Oh,
maybe.
The shape of it looked like an homage to me.
I mean, it was just already on the backlot, so I'm sure they chose, like, the most
Psycho-esque, yeah.
Really quick, I want to call it back to The Love Witch. Sorry, I forgot to bring this up. The fact that they play, like, a Psycho theme.
Yes! They play most of the soundtrack is Ennio Morricone scores. And the opening in particular, when she's driving away and you see her like spread the tarot cards out, is like a direct Psycho Janet Leigh with the money on the front seat. Like it's very
it's so good.
It's almost like a
You can't do that driving shot without thinking Psycho.
100%.
Sorry, just had to like that.
No,
I
absolutely.
was just like,
it's
this is so great.
Such a on point homage.
Sorry guys for that segue. Had to get that out of my brain. Like I said, this film kind of got mixed reviews. I think obviously it had a lot to do with it was just pulled from audiences that I think would have loved to see this on the big screen, especially going from like watching something on television, having it in your home, and be able to kind of go experience the movies of it and be amongst like your people to see this. I think it just that had such a huge impact. Like I said, you love her, you hate her. I have some 100%. Quotes that kind of hit both ends. So TV Guide said, quote, despite its mildly raunchy tone and obsession with Peterson's considerable cleavage, the film is a decent, good-hearted comedy that never takes itself seriously. So I feel like they got it. That's the point of this.
The points.
Yeah, the points.
Sorry, guys.
This one kind of makes me laugh. In a 2012 Time Out magazine article, they said, quote, a predictable plot and cheapskate effects deedened Elvira's occasionally witty lines with references to horror genre make the film busy without going anywhere. Vamp, high camp, where Elvira is more mistress of the dork. I feel like I'm
Rude.
mistress of the dark.
Also, you say that like it's a bad
I
thing.
know. Again, nail me coffin.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in a Dread Central 2020 article looking back on it, they said Elvira managed to make a seemingly oxymoronic character into a household name built off of her bountiful looks, quick wit, and oh my God, I didn't read this word. I'm just going to say, and her charisma. I'm skipping over that word.
We may never know what the actual quote was.
Yep, not saying that one. I tried
Love
to read
it.
it again. It's not
Love
happening
it.
today.
Love that for us.
So that's my kind of brief, but again, I think just like Elvira as a horror icon, like she supersedes like pop culture and she is a household name.
Mhm.
She really made her career herself. I kind of was really impressed reading kind of she knew what she wanted.
Well, and it is so grassroots and still feels so like she took her friends along with her.
I
And
know.
it's so heartwarming.
And she's so private too. Like
Yeah.
she still goes to cons and stuff, but she really is just like, I don't know. I feel like she's like the people's like gothic
The people's
icon.
princess.
The
The
people's
people's goth
mistress.
princess. Yeah. The people's mistress. It's so
You
true.
know, she's our little like dark
Ugh,
Princess Diana.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's it.
Princess Cassandra.
Yeah, if you want to hear more, watch the making of
that we couldn't find.
that we can't find.
Yeah,
So if anyone can
love
find
that.
it, please fucking
Send
DM
it our
us.
way. Yeah.
I want to watch it.
I would
so
absolutely watch that.
So we kind of got the gist of just giving Elvira some love
Yeah.
for the first time, finally on the podcast.
Thank you for the introduction. I feel like you just did a similar thing for me with Elvira that I did for you with vampire movies. Where it's like, this is my new personality now.
Yeah,
Like,
she's just like, I mean, just she's such a like a witty, intellectual,
she's
like
so smart.
cool person, and
Mhm.
the way she views life, and to have fun with this character and be someone that like everybody loved.
Yeah.
You know, like
Wild.
I don't know.
Can I also just shout out real quick? Like, I took very few notes for this, but one of
Oh my
the
God, I
only
can't
notes
imagine
that
what
I
you
took
wrote.
was like, I'm sorry, this implies face sitting in a TV movie. Wild.
Oh, when was that?
It's like during the orgy-esque sequence.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, the old
Yeah.
lady that goes to be like, and I'll
Yeah.
take a seat.
Yeah. Like
I
that
know.
could
I
barely
know.
get past censors today.
I
The fact
know.
that they did that in 88,
That scene was wild.
Wild.
Yeah.
my jaw was on the
Same.
floor.
I literally had to clutch my pearls on
Delighted.
that one. Yeah.
Delighted.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got away with a lot of stuff that I think like
Truly.
as a like a woman
Mhm.
being this sex symbol in the 80s,
Mhm.
for her to also like be taken really seriously and given these
Yeah.
chances,
It's
open a door for a lot of
it's
people, I think.
incredible.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's nobody who's really occupied quite the same niche.
Yeah, because normally you like we've seen and we still see a lot of the shaming that goes around that
Mhm.
women having power in their sexuality, and for her to not only have this kind of, you know, growing up being a showgirl and, you
Mhm.
know, doing Playboy and doing all these, or working for Playboy and doing all these things, like for her never to be shamed and have a door shut
Yeah.
in her face, where it could have so easily happened so many times for
Mhm.
her, that everyone was just like, no, we see the star power. It kind of like
100%.
superseded this, and she
Yeah.
kind of like the twist she did on it kind of
Mhm.
paved this way for her. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's I love her.
It's good. It's real good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Ugh,
yeah. Did
I'm
you like
so
it?
glad you chose this. Yes, I loved this. Are
It's
you
so
kidding me?
I was gonna say it's so campy
so
that I was like,
campy,
you
so
can't not.
gay. I also just like I feel like she's able to I feel like Elvira has jester's privilege. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm,
feel like she's able to get away with things
Yeah.
like a face-sitting scene in a TV movie
Yeah.
that just almost nobody else would be able to, because she's presenting it in this very like, oh, I'm just making jokes about my
Yeah.
titties. Like,
Yeah. How's your head? No
y-
complaints yet.
yeah, exactly. Like, where it just feels like she is sliding so much in under the surface.
Mhm.
Which again, it's very like going back to the Love Witch and the idea of this like
Yeah.
candy coated surface with all of this
Yeah.
rotten stuff underneath.
Yeah.
It's very, in her case, it's not rotten stuff, it's like radical stuff.
Yeah, like
But
super hyper sexualized. And again, like
yeah.
I don't know if it just like people, like, she was like, haha, laugh, and they're like, haha, funny. She's like, no, you don't really get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's
Yeah.
like, I'm getting away with
The
murder.
queers get it.
Yeah.
But the straights don't even know what hit them. Which is just,
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah, I love her. I'm so glad you liked it. These
Oh
were
my God.
so fun to watch
This was
together.
a really fun
just
pairing.
aesthetically,
Mhm. Yeah.
hit like 2 corners of my brain.
Such a, it feels like a complete, like a square meal of film between the two.
Yeah.
Should we tell people what we're doing next? Because I'm really excited for it.
I was like, oh shit, we got to do that. But Siena, of course, always has everything written down.
I have a plan.
Can you tell who does the notes? Who's the better note taker, guys?
I mean, I usually come in with like 3 ideas for pairings and just leave it up to you to decide which one sounds the most
but you actually
fun.
write them down after. I'm just like, what did we say? What did I say?
Do you remember what we said? Because I
don't know who's
doing.
doing though.
I know who's doing what.
Okay.
I'm
gonna let you say this then. I'll just sit here and wave.
So the next episode obviously will be coming out at the start of March.
Yeah.
So in honor of spring season, things
so
coming back to life, things
Or
coming
dying,
to
I
life.
and
I'm
rebirth.
covering Hellraiser.
Okay, you are gonna do Hellraiser, and I'm gonna do Reanimator, which I just watched during Halloween time. So I'm so excited. I love Hellraiser.
I feel like this is gonna
so
be
much.
Hellraiser is one that I've been saving for myself
Yeah.
because I know I'm gonna love it so much, especially because it's Clive Barker.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love Candyman so much that, like, of course I'm gonna love
this
it.
one's-
It's like Candyman, but even kinkier. Like,
it's like so the visuals of the two of these.
I can't.
It's just gonna
wait.
be it's
And
a
also,
very visual. pair.
We've both of ours this time were comedy horror, and those are two straight horror to my understanding.
Yeah, hoary and gory.
Horror-y and gory.
I don't know why I said it like that.
Elvira on
Where
the
do I
brain.
go? Where do I go? What do I say?
Got that.
Reanimator.
Yes.
We at the Jean Cocteau Cinema, every Wednesday we're doing Punk Rock Wednesdays.
Mhm.
We're doing free karaoke at 8 p.m. But we're looking to sometimes pair it with a film prior. So the film is only going to be $10 on Wednesdays when we do the punk rock pairings. But we're thinking about doing Reanimator at some point. So follow us on social if you're around the area or can make it to us at some point in New Mexico. Because we are going to be playing Reanimator. I think we should also do Hellraiser. I also think we should do
both.
Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. I
Honestly,
think it would be a great one.
Yeah.
So
all
we will
great
be
punk rock
pitching all of
karaoke.
those. So keep an eye out for those. Obviously, we're playing Love Witch, so JeanCocteauCinema.com. Tickets are on sale, and that'll be a good time. I'm hoping to we'll definitely have themed drinks for that one. Love Potion?
Yes. Obviously. Obviously.
Or do we put a
The
little
witch
tampon
bottle.
in the drink? I was gonna say, do we do a little jar with a tampon in it? Siena. It will not be real, guys. Or will it?
Oh, will it?
That's extra.
That's oh my god, that's
We're so gross. Oh my god. Sorry. Off the rails.
On that note.
On that note, follow us everywhere on social media. Everything's in our link tree and all of our bios to Splice Splatter Pod. You can watch you can see our fits if you want to on YouTube. We post the videos.
Our outfit fits and my coffee throwing fits.
Yeah.
All the different kinds of fits.
Me try not to get lipstick all over my face today.
Me getting doll eyes from the
I think you
fake
did pretty good.
eyelashes.
I think you did pretty
Oh,
good.
good.
Yeah.
Good. I've been like trying very hard to like force them up with my muscles, and I'm
I
just
feel
like,
you.
I forgot how heavy these motherfuckers
You just
are.
look over, one's just hanging off.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Otherwise, thank you, Warren Langford, for audio, Travis Fowler for wearing an Elvira shirt today and recording us, I suppose.
And staying even when you said you would go.
And thanks, Theo Schaefer, for the music.
Playing us out.
Other than that, thank you for listening to Splice Splatter.
The film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a classic horror.
It's modern gore.
And until next time,
We'll be right back.